Looks like we're live, people. What's going on, everybody? Hope everybody's having a great week. Everybody have a chance to get in here, and let me get some of these links shared. There goes my notifications from YouTube. They're pretty good, man. YouTube does good with the notifications. So if you're not following Phil Billy's channels on YouTube or the militia on YouTube, and you're not getting notifications, it'd be a good idea to follow them on there, because Facebook sometimes sends out notifications and sometimes they don't. So yes. So let me get these links shared and we'll get right on it. So what's everybody got going on this hump day? Oh yeah, before we get too far, I want to offer my condolences to Tom Pernell's family. I don't know, a lot of you may not know Tom Pernell. He was a member of the militia and DIY channel, and always kind of hanging out. A fellow Kentucky shiner, and a lot of you may remember he collected a lot, sold wood all winter, and collected wood during the summer times. And that's kind of his little retirement thing he had going on. He recently working on his truck and just reframed his truck and put a new clip on the back of his truck a few days ago, and I was talking to him, and then I noticed his family had posted that he had passed away. So rest in peace, brother. We're going to miss you, and condolences for your family. Sad day. Old Tom was good when he was a tough old bird. That was. He worked his ass off. He was a good guy. Old school, for sure. They don't make him that tough anymore, that's for sure. Let's see here. Put these links shared out there. That got them. I can't do them too fast, or they think I'm a bot spamming and they cut me off. I can't get all my links out, so I have to kind of take my time and go slowly. Notice some new members and some existing members in the militia talking about questions. So I directed some of them to come to the podcast with your questions, or you can ask them in group. You don't have to come here and ask them. You can ask them in group. Here, I can give you a little bit of some illustrations. I like pulling up charts because that's a little easier to follow for a lot of people. I know it is for me. So Also, I want to let everybody know I probably will not be doing a podcast this weekend. They've got a 100-year anniversary for the high school that I went to. 100 years in sports and in football, where we were pretty much a football school. And we got a 100, not a 100-year reunion, but a 100-year festival going on this year, recognizing all the players of the past. And I was a former all-conference player there, so I'll probably be making an appearance there and saying hey to all my old buddies and stuff. So that's where I'll be this weekend, for those wondering. All right. So, sorry, I didn't get it. What's going on, Eric? A lot of good shit, man. What's going on, Curtis? What's up, Clint? Yeah, Tom was a good one. He was, how many times can you rerun Shine? That's a good question. I mean, you can rerun it as many times as you want to. I mean, I've heard of, double and triple distillation. I think, by 3, maybe 4 times people get, what they want. It depends on why you're rerunning it. What's the purpose of the rerun? Some people just strip and then rerun. Some people run something and normally, and they don't like what they get off the tap, and they're like, well, I think I'll just try to rerun that and clean it up a little bit. And so that's kind of a cleaning run, trying to clean some things up. And sometimes people rerun to add flavor, keep adding to the back set. So that's something. Watched a video recently. Was talking to Royce Neely of Neely Distillery here, and he was talking about doing the same thing. That they do a lot of that. They rerun a lot in the back ends of the back set, and that's, I guess, the way cognac's done, and it's a good way to add more flavor. Keep rerunning and rerunning, and clean things up and add some flavor. Sure, go ahead, brother. Not much, hell, Billy. What's up, brother? Hi, Richard. Shoot, buddy. But Eric, there's a lot of different ways reasons to rerun. A lot of times they'll just run it pot still mode. And I mean, I've done this before. Something didn't come out very good or came out like my watermelon. That's a perfect example. My watermelon, I'm going to probably put the column on and clean up that shit. It was a horrible, horrible shine. I hated turning it in. But I'm not just going to not turn in a jar because it's not what I wanted. That's a bitch ass back out. But yeah, I take my lumps when I get them. It wasn't good, so I'll probably put that on a column and clean it up and maybe infuse it with something. All right, 2-liter oak barrel. Okay, so that won't take too long. That's half a gallon. Now, Richard, there's been a little bit of talk recently about split brandy and mountain brandy. And I want to get your all's thoughts on it because it was always my understanding growing up, being around, split brandy was different fruits going into one brandy. And then mountain brandy was always fruit with a grain mixed in it, like an apple rye. So I don't know if I don't know if I've always been told wrong or learned wrong, or if that's right or exactly. I don't know if Google can give me a really good answer, but just interested on what your all's thoughts are on that. Cloud up. Interesting. So, it's not changing temperature. I would say if it's getting a drop in temperature, if it's stored in maybe a warm place, it's being put in a cold glass, it had to be an easy answer, because a lot of times if there's oils in there at room temperature, it'd be fine, but you start adding, freeze or coldness to it, it starts to cloud up on you. And that's just the oil starting to coagulate and saponify, basically. So I don't know, if there's a temperature change or exactly what might be causing that. But just sitting in the glass for a while, oxidizing shouldn't cause it to cloud up a little, but that's I don't know if it's getting cooler, if the temperature's changing, I would say, you know, huh. Okay, so how many pounds of barley did you use per gallon of water? You may need to increase your. Yeah, what's the proof of it, Richard? That. So 2 pounds per gallon. Interesting. Let's see. Let me pull up the chart. That the temps. The temps are definitely in the range. Barley malt, 150 degrees. You're right dead center. So I mean, you should have been no problem. I don't think you denatured anything unless you went over 155. So I doubt that you denatured anything. But I mean, you got some out of it. You got to 102, but still, that's not anywhere where you need. Um, let's see if there's a chart on pounds per gallon, because I've never done like an all, single grain except for corn before. So I definitely want to do a Scotch. So I'm definitely going to do an all barley soon. Maybe try getting some unmalted to go along with it, and gelatinize the unmalted, and then add the malted to that, to help convert it. But yeah, you definitely should have had something going on there with that. Let me see here. I can't see these damn icons. My eyes are. Guess I could put my glasses on. Yeah, I don't know. Trying to find the chart here that shows that's all fruits and vegetables, though. Let's see what this is. I don't think this includes any grains. Yeah, this is just fruits and vegetables. Let's see. Maybe. All right. According to Google, uh, for an OG of 1050, 50 points per gallon, you'd need 1.4 pounds of malted base grain barley, wheat, rye, whatever. So you definitely, you said you ran 2 pounds? 10 pounds of malted barley. How many gallons of water? Oh, so you were 2 pounds per gallon. Yeah, that should have been enough. Yeah, I'm thinking, but according to Google, um, yeah, got a line of 2 to 2.5. Homebrew talk. Um, I'm seeing a lot of varying amounts, 2.5 to 3 pounds, from Home Distiller Club. 2 to 3 generally. 2 to 3 pounds per gallon is generally the range for grains. Um, but I wouldn't have thought that an all malted barley should be 2 pounds per gallon. Should have probably got you more than that. I don't know. Maybe it's just old. I mean, yeah, I've always been told different, Richard. It's interesting. Yeah, I've always been told mountain brandy is a grain and a fruit, and a split brandy is 2 different fruits. So I don't know. Yeah, it could have been. It could have been starting to get a little age on it. So I'm thinking it could have been a little. Yeah. What? Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, that's a good way to do it, because they both ferment. They're different. Grains ferment faster than the fruit. So yeah, doing them separately is a good idea. Yeah, that's what I'm guessing. Maybe sometimes too they get stored in some of these warehouses. And they get forklifted up to the top rack and on a pallet somewhere in some hot ass warehouse in Texas. And it could be hot enough up there to denature things. That plus time sitting there drying out. Hard to say, brother. But it doesn't. It should have been more than that, I would think. Just 2 pounds and 150 for an hour. you know I don't know, maybe let it go a little bit longer. I think with the corn, it's just gelatinize 90 minutes. But I would have thought you should have definitely gotten something more than that. Yeah, I think it's a good idea to do it that way. Definitely, for sure. Red Star Rouge. Good stuff. I think it's what Royce Neely. I don't know if y'all saw the interview. I guess Still Talking had him on, and interesting interview. Y'all should watch that. Check out Ian and Sean Rigsby in their podcast, and had Royce Neely on. Is very interesting. But they like the Red Star. That's one of they prefer to go with the Red Star. Yeah, give him a shout, see what he thinks about it. I'm guessing probably just the grains, not really, you know, fresh, and as active as it once was. Maybe some of the, starting to dry up. Some of the starches and stuff are starting to break down. I don't know. Good question. But if you have some powdered amylase, I guess, at the 155 range, you could add some of that to see if you could break it down a little more, add some exogenous enzymes to it to see if, maybe it's just lost some of its diastatic power, but still may have enough starches in there to convert. It wouldn't hurt to add a little bit of high temp if you got it, or some powder amylase. Hard to say. Yeah, but 2 to 3 pounds definitely should have got you more than 102. But I'd try some amylase with it, see if that helps break it down some more. Warm it back up. If you got some powder, warm it up to 155, and I've got powder I try to use up, so that'd be a perfect time for me to try to use up the rest of that powder and just see if I can get something to happen. But if not, I guess you could, you've gotten all the amylase out of it that you're going to get, so don't worry about, excuse me, denaturing it. Maybe take it, add another pound per gallon, and heat it up to 155 and add that powder if you got some powder. If you don't, just try to see what that does, and then maybe add some high temp to it. Take it on up. Don't worry about denaturing it. Just use the high temp amylase and depend on that. See if you've got enough starches in there, to convert. Yeah, I'd say, yeah, usually grains happen so quickly you don't have to worry about pH crashing. Um, and with malted grain, you definitely nutrients isn't an issue. Um, so I'd say it's just pretty much probably the grain is starting to lose its efficacy. And you had it a few months. Who knows how long it sat in the warehouse on that pallet. That could have been barley from 2003 or something. But it's hard to say. Oh yeah, I'm definitely after I get done with the powder I got, Clint, I'll never buy another powder, but I try to, I try to use it. I hate to just throw it away. It wasn't expensive, but that's just how cheap I am. I don't want to throw it away. So if I get some good out of it, I'll try, and that'd probably be a pretty good time to try some out and see if it helped. What's going on, Mr. Gary Perry? How you doing, brother? Again, for some of those that may have tuned in late, our old buddy Tom Pernell passed away, I guess yesterday or day before yesterday. I guess maybe yesterday. Is a couple of days ago I was talking to him. He just fixed his truck, and I noticed his family posted yesterday that he had passed. So again, prayers for his family. Oh, wow. Well, no, I'm not going to be able to make it to Beattyville, man. They've got a football thing in Pikeville this weekend, and I'm going to go to that. It's a 100-year celebration. It's interesting how people create a YouTube account just so they can go troll people. Must be a pretty shitty life to have nothing better to do than that. I kind of pity people like that. Oh, you did try the liquid amylase? Yeah, I know. I hate that too. But or you could just, you could actually just do like a corn. Do you some corn and get it converted, and then just add that to it for flavor. That wouldn't. Yeah, I'd planned on going to Beattyville, but I didn't even know this thing was happening until this past week. They posted on Facebook, and I'm like, well, shit. I was looking forward to going to Beattyville. I definitely have to hook up with you some other time, Jeff. But I will. Yeah, there's been a lot of drama and stuff going around. I'm not surprised, You know, people got to go out there and say everybody's a fake. I don't know what I thought. Once somebody started distilling, they weren't a fake anymore or something. I don't know. I've been doing a long enough time to definitely no fake. But yeah, people have nothing better to do. Yeah, I hate it too, brother. Old Tom was a good guy. What's going on, Chevy boy? I'm a Chevy man too. Yeah, we'll probably go with a week or two of it, and then they'll get bored and maybe grow a pair or something, find something better to do. Doesn't bother me at all, man. I can hit that delete button real quick, and anybody sees that crap. Yeah, I do too, man. I don't, you know, every once in a while you got to say something though. People start calling you out and calling you names and posts and stuff like that the other day. I'm not going to let somebody just sully my name and not take up for myself. You know, I'm sure that's what a lot of that's all about, and I don't really give a shit. If you don't like me, that's fine with me. I'll sleep just fine not knowing that. Yeah, I keep mine in the fridge too, Clint. Good point. Yeah, I keep mine in the fridge. Same with your yeast. You know, you can freeze your yeast, um, and it'll keep a lot longer. But go from the freezer when you want to thaw them out. Go from the freezer to the refrigerator, and from the refrigerator to the counter, and let it warm up. Don't try to take it directly out of the freezer and chisel it off and in chunks and use it. It doesn't work as well that way. But yeah, you can freeze your yeast and refrigerate it for sure to keep it longer. Yeah, we definitely try to keep it drama free. You know, there is no drama in here, as a, you know, we don't do that. Amylase, I use the liquid high temp amylase and then the glucose amylase. I guess it's the um, uh, firm solutions. But I've been getting broken bones from my buddy Prohibition. Um, I'm sure they're probably both pretty much the same thing. But yeah, people gonna troll, man. People have nothing better to do with their lives, nothing going on. I mean, I feel sorry for them. You know, really, I do. I feel sorry that they have nothing but hate and jealousy. It's an ugly thing, ain't it? You know, and that's all it is, just hate and jealousy. And people, they can't stand somebody doing what they enjoy and seeing somebody smile and laugh, and they're so eat up with hate and inside. I don't know. Pray for them, I guess, all we can do. Yeah, if you keep them refrigerated, it helps. But corn, seems to keep pretty well. Um, malted grains not as well. They don't keep as long because they've already been kind of opened up and they're exposed, so they oxidize quicker. But like a corn kernel, those will keep, you know, probably out of all the grains, probably keep a little bit longer than the others because of the protective husk and stuff. But yeah, it's the best to try to use them and try to get them from a place that has a pretty good turnover. What's going on, Richard? Good to see you, brother. Uh, it's good to try to buy them from a place that has a good turnover rate. Like Tractor Supply and a lot of these places, man, they they're all the time restocking and selling, restocking and selling. Whereas you go to some places and they might sell a few bags a month. So I'll tell you what I do with my corn. I've got the drums, that have the snap ring lids and they're airproof and waterproof and I like to get my corn in the fall and I let it sit out there in the winter and let it get real cold and that'll kill off any insect larvae and any insects or weevils or anything that are in it. It'll kill all that shit off, and then you won't have to worry about it in the spring and summer. There'll be bugs in it if you keep that lid on there. I was trying to look and see who made the Sebstar, and I've never Sebmeal and Sebstar and all those. I've never found an actual. It always says like Moonshiner or something, just something generic like that. And I was curious what company had them and what did it, but I wasn't able to, just on like Amazon, it just said like Moonshiner. I guess I don't know if that's some company or who, but I do know that Sebstar and Sebmeal are good products. Yeah, and that beta glucanase for the really thick, like the ryes and stuff. Yeah, I know. Yeah, I've done a pineapple. I did a pineapple rum though. So I used brown sugar with my pineapples instead of just straight pineapple brandy. I cheated. I used some, some brown sugar and Richard, I guess, for the recipe wise, it's just basically, crack your wheat and, roll it or crack it and just cook it up. Let's see our temperatures, let's see straight wheat. So you can go about 145, 147 up to about 150. Don't go over 150 for sure. I'd say around 145 to 150 range. Cook it at that until it starts gelatinizing and getting thick. I'd say about 90 minutes generally. And once it starts getting thick like that, now is this a malted wheat or just straight wheat? I should ask that probably off the bat. Malted wheat will probably have a little bit lower temperature. Yeah, I don't let them get to me, brother. I pity him. Haters gonna hate, man. And if the haters are hating on you, you must be doing something right. Anyway, we're moving along here. Yeah, I looked. I was trying to find. I'm wondering if Firm Solutions, if I don't know, maybe they don't make their own. Let's see. I can't imagine them not, but I mean that. Let's see. Yeah, Firm Solution produces their amylase. I thought they were probably one of the larger ones, but I could be wrong. I didn't read that anywhere. I just kind of assumed that. I know they service a lot of the big, big distilleries, the big guys, because I know the Wilderness Trail Distillery, Patrick Heist is owner of that and owner of Firm Solutions, and that's top 10 bourbon producer in the world. So I'm assuming that they, make quite a bit. I don't know. Let's see. And yes, I'm Googling to see who produces the most amylase because it's not up there. Okay. I don't know. Be something good to research, Clint. I'm not sure. I've not heard of that fits out there in California, so I don't really know. I know that. All right, let's see here. But definitely get up with me sometime next weekend or next week, Jeff. Definitely need to meet up. Oh, you brother. I'm not forgetting. All right. Enzyme solutions, actually, that might be firm solutions with maybe they just produce them out there. Enzyme solutions. Yes, Okay. Well, of course, it helps if you spell enzymes, right? Okay. So yeah, that Enzyme Solutions, it has like multiple companies has that name, I guess, but the one in the U.S. is Tim Beck. Doesn't ring a bell. But that'll be a good question to ask Patrick when I talk to him. I know they make some good ones. They're here in Kentucky, so I kind of would probably buy my next from them. I don't know if Prohibition is still doing it or not. I know that North Georgia, I think sells his through them now. I think he sells through North Georgia now. So if you want to help them out, you can go through them. I'd say they're all pretty much the same thing. Where's Phil Billy? I don't know, man. He's probably working on that pig pen. I seen him post on lately. He's got him a pig, and he's working on a pig pen, and for all week. Richard, I'll look it up and see what I can find you, brother. I will. Let's see. In fact, let me do it real quick. I'll do that while y'all talk. That's a good question, Gordon. I would say, I know they don't make it. I know Prohibition doesn't make it. He orders it, repackages it, and sells it in smaller volumes, to people at the festivals and stuff, and sells and sold quite a bit through his company. Him and Shua, and I guess others had a little company going there with Broken Bones Distillery. I think they're working primarily. I think he's working on maybe getting a distillery going and something of that nature. So I'd say them boys are pretty busy. India and China industry. Yeah, if you're going to do a corn and wheat ferment, uh, and it's not malted, yeah, you can cook your corn first and gelatinize it at the 190, degrees way up here, and use your liquid, alpha on that, and I guess since you're really not dependent on any uh, amylase or anything like that from your wheat, if it's not a malted wheat, I would say you'd be able to, add that to it, at the same time you're, heating it up. It's not, you're not going to denature anything. %30. I mean, if it were malted and you're depending on the malt, actually a malted wheat as is higher diastatic than barley. So 20% is generally a good rule of thumb to convert the corn. So if you had 30, that should be plenty. But if you're just using it for flavor, just crack your wheat and put it with your corn and just cook it all up and and use that. Yeah, buddy. He's knowledgeable, man. He's definitely a big contributor to the channel. We love him. What's going on, Greg? Don't worry about your cap. That cap's fine. You know, on the first few days you can gently push that cap down in. Don't stir anything up. Don't get crazy with it. Just keep it moist. Push it back down into the liquid below, into your mash, and keep doing that for 3 or 4 days, and then kind of let it do its thing. You can put it in a brew bag as well. Temperatures right now, things are going to start slowing down a little bit because temperatures, I've noticed a lot more people complain about stuck fermentations and things going slow and that nature. And we usually always hear about that this time of year. And I always mention temperature, and they're like, nope, not a temp. But we don't get as many people complaining. I'm not saying 100% it is a temp, but, a lot of times this time of year, people just don't realize those nighttime temps, they can get pretty low. But yeah, usually what I do with my fruit, I just put it all in the fermenter. I don't use the brew bag or any of that. And then when I'm straining it out, I'll put a brew bag on another barrel and just scoop it and use that brew bag to catch everything like a filter. And then I've got a mop wringer that I wring the brew bag out with and try to wring out as much moisture as I can. And usually I'll let it go with that, and just take the juice that I've got. But having that cap, it's fine. When you ferment, you want to ferment on the fruit. You can certain fruits and stuff you can take like the peels off. Certain peels will make things bitter. And sometimes a lot of people are concerned about a lot of chemicals and stuff that may be in the peels as well. So good idea. If you want to take the peels out, you can. But yeah, it will go slowly. What temperature is it at, Greg? Yeah, Richard. If you're going to use liquid and glucose, yeah, I just cook it all together. I don't think you have to step mash it. I guess you could, cook your corn first at 185, add your amylase, and then when it gets down to 157. But I don't think your high temp's going to work effectively at that temp. So I just cook it all together myself and just use that high temp, and that'll break it all down. Should I double yeast and pectin? No. Pectin, you don't want to use. Pectin is used for making jellies and jams. I'm pretty sure you mean pectic enzymes. So a lot of people get those two confused, and you definitely don't, because they're kind of opposite. So pectins cause things to gel and help make the jello and the jelly and all those things. But the pectic enzyme basically breaks down a lot of that gel and cell membranes and stuff. So but never use too much. You can easily use too much pectic enzymes, and you don't want to. Usually use what they say on the jar. For your fruit and stuff. And it's like yeast. You shouldn't have to double your yeast or anything like that. What temp are you at? Yeah, I never had much luck with the powders either. I mean, they work, but I just never really got a good conversion like I did with high temp, or malts. But I mean, they did work. I got some, it's marketably not as good as the liquid. You can do the same thing every time and use the powder, and get a 105060, and then do the exact same thing and use that liquid, you'll be a 1070, you know. So it's consistently doing better conversions. Yeah, that's what we're all here to have a good time and learn, brother. Oh, that's it then. Yeah, 65. You definitely want to keep it in the 70s, you know, even with the wine yeast, trying to keep it in the 70s. So you may have to, you know, if it's inside, you know, you can put it near some heaters. Um, Outside, you get a lot of temperature flux, so you may be active during the day and less active at night. It may pick up activity during the day and night if it's outside, and you get a lot of that cycling. And I'm not convinced if that's great or bad yet. You know, it may stress the yeast, it may not. I've never done the experimentation on it or read much research on that being done, but absolutely, Richard. Yeah, I got you, brother. So you want a wheat and just corn, or a wheat with corn mix? And I all right, now I will say basically as far as recipes goes, I want to it's going to be basic. It's going to be, you know, 20 gallons of water, uh, 50 pounds of corn, and that's going to be about 2.5 pounds per gallon. So you boil that water, get it boiling hot, and put about 15 to 17 gallons in your fermenter. And if you can have something insulated, like a cooler or something insulated, and you can refer back to this video, just rewind what I say and write it down, or try. But once you get that in there, you need to get you a drill with a little paddle mixer. I use a little mud mixer on mine, and get it going. And as it's going, you just start adding your cornmeal. Now you can use cracked corn, but a lot of people like to get a little bit finer. You get a little bit better conversion when your corn's a little finer than a crack, but it's a little harder to clear, and you know, you have some issues there as well. If you're patient, it's not a big deal. But slowly add those in while it's stirring, and try to you keep a few gallons of boiling water separate, right? So you put maybe 15, 17 in, and keep a few separate, keep it boiling, and then add that 50 pounds of corn in. And then as the temperature gets a little bit low, add some of that water. You know, once it starts to, you know, you start seeing a little bit of gelatinization. You know, some people add the high temp amylase right off. I like to wait and let it start gelatinizing before I add mine. And then add your high temp amylase to that, and just keep adding the water to keep it at 185, 90 for 90 minutes to 2 hours, and you should be ready to go. You know, and if you don't use all that hot water that you kept to get it gelatinized and ready, maybe you got a few gallons left. Dump it out, get some cold ass water, and pour it in on that, and that'll help start cooling it off, because you know, after you use that high temp amylase on it, you want to cool it off to about the 150s if you're going to, you know, add any malts to it. If not, then just let it keep cooling off until you get down to your glucose pitching temps and your yeast pitching temps, and then, you know, go ahead and add those in at 100 degrees. And maybe the yeast, depending on the yeast, 90, 95. Bread yeast, you can do it at 100. Red Star Daddy, you can add it at 95 to 100, no big deal. But some of your wine yeast, you'll want to let it get a little cooler before you add, that in, like EC 1118 is a champagne yeast, and some of those yeast, you want to let it get a little bit cooler, in the 80s and 90s before you add that. But that's the recipe, that's it, and just let it work off, and in 4 or 5 days, it should, if temperatures and everything's correct, it should be fine. You try to get your pH to around 5.2 starting out. So if you got some citric acid to throw in there, you can get your water, the boiling water, check the pH of it, get it to 5.2, 5.3 range using citric acid. And that technique, a lot of people don't understand, but having that lower pH, even for the conversions, helps your conversion. So having that lower pH helps your conversions, and it keeps things fresh. But yeah, that's basically the recipe. You don't need to add a lot of different stuff. You don't need a lot of nutrients with this. With an all corn, you can throw a little bit of nutrients in there. It's not going to hurt. You don't need near what the package calls for. You can definitely over nutrient, and just like over yeasting and over, pectic enzyming. You can use too much enzymes. You can overdo things, and it can impact the flavor. So a lot of times people will go on what the label says to use, or do use a little less. Um, with an all corn, you could use a little bit of nutrients. There's not a whole lot of ganafan in just the corn. There's enough, but a lot of times some places like to supplement that a little bit. If you're using a malted grain, you don't need, you're not going to need to add nutrients at all, because they are a good nutrient. Now, as far as doing the same thing, you do the same exact thing for a barley. If you wanted, or a wheat, if you want to just add like a regular wheat, not a malted wheat, just throw it in there, crack it, throw it in there, or crush it, and throw it in there with the corn, cook it, cook it up at 185, 90 degrees, and I like to steep, because it's easy to scorch things, and especially once you get it big pots and use them a lot, and you get the hot burners, and it's a little easier if you're doing smaller batches. But once you start doing big batches on a big 10-inch burner that gets 250,000, 300,000 BTU, it can get easy to scorch. So they're great for boiling water, but a cooler, using a cooler or something insulated like that. I've seen people, wrap foam around their barrels, and that works well too. I've seen people use barrel heaters, all those work just fine. But yeah, Greg, you get that temp up. What kind of yeast did you use, Greg? But I will follow up, Richard. I'm actually going to do some, and I've already started. Got a pretty good chunk done of it. Um, just a little chart to kind of have next to you to kind of go by, and it'll probably include this chart right here that I've got up. That's, if you don't have another chart, you'll see me pull this up every week. I mean, I love that chart, and I like this chart because it tells you how much sugars you can expect out of all the different fruits and vegetables. But this chart really, it shows you, your temp ranges, and you don't want to exceed these upper dots here. That's the point where you start denaturing the enzymes that are in them if they're malted. And this is the saccharification range. That's where a lot of it gets converted to sugars, and it gets broken down. But we cheat on the corn because we're not patient. We don't want to. Right? See, where's the maize on here? Corn, maize. Okay, it says right here 177 degrees, and as low as this. A lot of people, you don't realize that you can gelatinize corn at 145 plus. This is the point where it will start gelatinizing. And and this isn't for a malted corn. This is just regular corn. So, but we take it up, a lot longer because it happens quicker. So you can do it in these ranges here. You can cook your corn down here, but you have to add hours to the cooking time. And we found that, with the corn, you can do it at 185, 90 and not really impact the flavor of the corn, but gelatinize much quicker. So 90 minutes to 2 hours instead of 6, 8, 10, 12 hours at lower temp. Because once you get down these lower temps, it takes a long time to gelatinize. So, but if you're not using the malts, yeah, you can just throw it in with it, or add it as it cools off, The amylase will still be in there, but that liquid high temp, help me out, Clint. Is it 170 that it starts reduce? I know it works from like 185 down to 170, I think it is. And then after that, it starts losing its efficacy as well. So, there's temperatures that are too cold for the high temp amylase. So I think it's like, 185 to 170 range. And once you get below there, it's not gonna work as well. I do the same. I add the amylase because I'm never going to depend on all the malt and all the amylase in the malt. And I've also changed my habits of ordering. I don't get 6-row anymore. I buy 2-row now. It's cheaper, and I don't need the 6-row. I don't need that extra diastatic, and I prefer the flavor of the two, as do most people. So, we can start buying a little bit cheaper 2-row, and start using that now that we got the liquid. And it's definitely, there's a lot more varieties of them out there. There's a lot of 2-rows. That's a European thing, and it's used in a lot of beers, and it's a big beer thing. And you talk to beer makers, and they scoff at 6-row, and they're like, and the flavor, that some of the best flavors are in 2-row. And again, flavors comes to subjective opinion, so everybody will have a different one. But yeah. Absolutely. It is really inexpensive to use. I mean, you're using tiny amounts, and you get a big jar, it's not really expensive. I don't know how I ever did without it, after using it. It's such a welcome change from, just using your malts, and it's a huge welcome change from struggling with the powders. I don't know if it slows it down. It does offer a protective barrier, and it helps hold in some CO2, which helps hold out the oxygen. I just remembered something I want to share, and I'm not going to mention any names, but I am going to share some pictures that were sent to me earlier this week. And Richard, I've got you written down for all corn recipe and corn and wheat. And you're in the militia, right? I'll get you those, Richard. Let me make sure. Let me see here. Uh-oh, Richard. Wait a minute. What the hell is going on, man? All right, Rich, let's see. I don't think we're friends on Facebook. Are you in the militia, Richard? Trying to find a way I can get these to you. All right, let's see. All right, let's see. 65. Greg, sorry. Yes, wait a minute. You definitely don't want to stir daily, Steve. Especially wines and brandies, especially wines. If it's going to become a wine, absolutely not. But you don't want to oxidate things. You want your mash to be super oxidated on day one, and that's when you add your yeast. Because once the yeast get in that oxygen-rich environment, they want to reproduce. So they spend all their time, a lot of times reproducing in that oxygen-rich environment. I guess they get oxygen drunk, and they want to breed. So they breed heavily in that aerobic condition. But after that, you really, you don't want them breeding anymore. You don't really want to overpopulate the yeast. You don't want to just have a bunch of yeast because that makes a big yeast bed in the bottom that can affect flavor. You don't want a lot of flocculence and yeast in the bottom. And also you want your mash, or must in this case, to become anaerobic. The reason you want it anaerobic is because bacteria and stuff require a lot of oxygen, and that's where I'm going to with these pictures. Perfect example of why you should use an airlock. And what happened, this guy did a mash. I'm not going to mention any names, and I'm actually going to do screenshots of the pictures that he sent me, so you can't trace that either. But he had a couple barrels of this mash going. It was apple brandy must, and had it going, and one of them started foaming up. He's afraid it's going to overflow because it was rising pretty quickly. The cap coming up had a pretty good sized cap on it. So I thought, get you another bucket barrel, split it, and so he did. He mixed it all up, which is fine if you're going to do this, and that way you can get everything homogeneous. You don't just scrape the stuff off the top. You're going to get all fruit and no must. So he mixed it all up, and this is right at the very first, first like day or two. So, and I will get back to where I was on the oxygen. But so he put all the half of it in another barrel. Okay, so in this barrel he put his airlock back on. The other one he just set the lid on. And I will show you the difference in the two a couple of weeks later. And this is a perfect example of why it's beneficial to have the airlocks, especially on brandies and wines and things that are going to ferment for longer periods of time. Again, you don't have to. This isn't if you don't, you're going to die and it won't work kind of thing. If you don't, you get mixed results, and sometimes you get some bacterial buildup, and you can still run it. It can still make liquor. Some people may think it just tastes just fine and perfect. Some people may think, it's got a little bit off taste. And if you do both and compare the two, which is what we're going to do and what he's doing on this, we're going to figure out, just how much impact that bacteria has on this other mash, because it's night and day on how they look just a couple of weeks later, doing nothing but just in the same place, sitting right next to each other, no other changes. So but let me do that real quickly on here, and let's see, I'll do want to anyway, get back to the oxygen. So keeping it moist, keeping the cap moist and pushed down helps keep bacteria from building up, because there's alcohol in the water forming, right? So that helps keep the bacteria down. Moisture helps keep the CO2 in, and having just CO2 helps keep the bacteria down if you don't have a lot of oxygen. I'm going to try to get caught up here. Yeah, 65 is a little cool. I mean, if you're using some wine yeast, what yeast again? Because if it's like a wine yeast, you can bring it to the mid 70s and it'll be perfectly fine. 75, and it'll be happy. So you don't have to superheat. If it's more of a bread yeast or a daty yeast, then probably closer to 80. Low 80s would be more beneficial. But yeah, for a wine, 70s is fine if you've got wine yeast. Yeah, Steve, the if the sweet feed has been cooked, if it's been steam rolled, it's been gelatinized. They steamroll stuff and it comes in flakes. If it's flaked, it's been steamrolled, and that's just gelatinizing. So that takes place of cooking, but it doesn't have anything to do with amylase. You'll still have to add your amylase, but it does take place of the cooking. You don't have to cook it, but you still have to bring it up to 185 if you're using the high temp. I will. Right, blankets, anything. I've seen people use the like memory foam or just the flexible foam, wrap it around and get a belt or a wire and strap it. You know, big coolers work great. If you got a big ass cooler, nothing better. You know. Right, right, yeah. What he's talking about here is once you get in this saccharification range at 150, and starting to here at 155, you really want to hold. This is a hold period here, and so you want to right here hold. Let me get that out here. Saccharification range, and this is called a rest range, and this is a rest period, which means you want to hold it here and let it rest at these temperatures in between this temperature here for it to help secure. I can't do this when I'm drinking. Saccharification. You've heard of saccharin. Well, that is a sugar substitute. Saccharification is just a sugar, a sugaring. I usually EC1118 and EC1116 is great. They're both great. I don't know why either. They're both excellent. And I guess I'd say there's a lot of people do. I hear a lot of people talk about the 1116. I think there's like a V1116 as well too, if I'm not mistaken. That works real well. Yeah, it's K1. Lalvin K1 is a V1116. That's a real good yeast. I'm trying to see if what's the specific thing. It gives a lot of floral esters, a lot of acetates. When we talk about, a lot of people talk about the heads and stuff like they're the worst thing ever. Acetone in the heads is bad. Some of your acetates can be bad, but some of your acetates are good. This is talking about some isoamyl acetates, hexyl acetates, phenylethyl acetates, and those all bring floral notes to it. There's a lot of fruity flavors that you can get out of these acetates and out of your heads as well. So depending on what it is and how well that you've made cuts and how if you're gonna age it or if it's something you're drinking clear, these are all things to consider. But there's certain times that if you see a lot of these people that are really good at making cuts and mixing, you'll see them dip into some of those heads for some of those esters and some of those flavors. So especially on aged, if you're going to age, taking a class on cuts, I think that'd probably be one of the best classes for somebody to teach. I'd probably take the class too, because that's something I want to learn more about, and being able to pick these notes out and make really, I guess when they're in the heads, you can make small cuts, and I guess they're coming off at different temperatures, and you can get some different flavors and notes from them. But yeah, the Lalvin K1 is a V1116, and I know that's different from the EC1116, but and I'm not sure if the K stands for a Quebec type yeast or exactly what's that. That's why I googled this, so if that see what that K1 stood for. I'm not sure if it's Quebec yeast or what, but I know it's a wine yeast, and it's real popular in France. Where was I? Oh yeah, I'm going to find those pictures. Richard, I need to know how I can get up with you, brother. I don't. I gotta have somewhere I can send them. I can post them in the if you're in the militia or in the DIY Shining Stuff page. I can post them in there for you, or need to get up with me somehow on Facebook so I can get you these. But don't put your email or anything on here for public. You can use that, but it's not a starchy corn. That's more of a corn used for flavorings. You're going to have to use probably, some sugars to go along with that. Um, Believe it or not, just like just a regular old canned corn, cooked and converted will yield you less sugars than a real starchy corn that has been cooked and converted. Those starches uh, get converted by the amylase and create those sugars. And but I do know a lot of people that use the canned corn, and especially the cream corn is really good in a thumper or an infusion jar to kind of give you a little bit more corn flavor. That works real well. So that's probably what I would use for the I've never used sweet corn because it's always just been so damn expensive, and it's already got its sugars in it. So there's um, I guess converting it's a lot easier, but and you don't have to break the starches down because you've already got most of your sugar. So I'd still, I guess, use amylase to make sure that those sugars are fermentable. But I've never done a lot with sweet. Have y'all done a lot with sweet corn? I mean, it's always just been cost prohibitive for me, and I love corn, and so I'm generally going to eat that. But field corn is just so cheap, and it is 170.90. I was thinking that was the range, but I couldn't remember. But yeah, I think mine actually says 185. So yeah, 170, 190. Yours says 190 to 150. Cool. Well, that's good. What kind do you have, Richard? Because that's a good range. Because most of mine are like 190, 185 to 170, 190 to 170. I think that's what mine says. So 150 is awesome because a lot of times with these amylases, you can get too cold for them to use. I know that powder is like 155, and if you go above 160, it can denature, and then below 150, and it becomes less effective to where it won't even hardly work. So it's really tough. Right? Yeah, that's what I've gotten. But there might be some that are different, formulated a little different. Richard, you are in the militia. Okay, good deal. Good deal, brother. I just sent you a friend request, and you don't have to accept it, but I can still send you that in a message, and I'll probably do so here in a little bit. It's going to take me a little time to dig those out, and I might not do it tonight because I may just send you what I've been working on once I get it done because it's going to be step for step. What's going on, Jared? What's up, brother? Yeah, that's what you should follow because it's different formulations. But I definitely want to know what kind it is because working down to 150, that's a pretty good range, and if it'll work all the way down there, that'd be great. What's up, Mash Brothers? And I know you told me your name, and we'll maybe use that. I'll get it one of these days. Yeah, yeah. A lot of your yeast has pretty good ranges, but you know, like Clint's talking about, there's ranges that it'll actually function, but there's really a small range in which it shines, in which it really does its best. And EC 1118 is a champagne yeast, and I think the mid to upper 170 is where it really shines. But you know, it's got a good pH range, it's got a good temperature range. But to make, you want to keep those yeasts as happy as they can be, and I think that's the temperature that they're the happiest. Right, and that's a good point. You know, they've noticed that that different temperatures will produce different flavor notes out of your yeast. So, see, Clint's a sharp guy. He knows. Yeah, yeah. You always want to cut the acetone and the fours out 100% always, and your high heads and high, you know, high heads. Um, but for aging, yeah, and even, you know, keeping some of your tails for aging. You know, your high tails that are closest to your hearts. And here we go. Here, let me pull up this other chart and I can kind of illustrate a little better here. Again, don't pay attention to the temperatures at the top. But you know, if you're just doing straight off the tap white dog and you're just going to drink it like a vodka or a moonshine or whatever straight off the tap, and you're not going to age it or put it in any barrels or anything like that, you know, 8 through 14 is pretty much what you want to blend, right? That's it. If you're going to age in barrels and if you're going into a big barrel and you're going to age for 4+ years, then you want to go with jar 6 through jar 16, because that dark blue and that green in there, the ethyls, you know, the acetates will estrify along with the oils, the acids and the oils and everything will estrify and create interesting flavors and notes. And it doesn't even have to be in a barrel. You know, you can age it in a jar and you're still going to get this chemical process that's taking place over time. And yeah, I know what you meant, brother. What's going on, Olympic Dave? How's it going, brother? North Georgia? Yeah, it's the same thing as Broken Bones. Yeah, the Quebecy, everybody. I've not heard anybody say anything bad about Quebecy yeast. Everybody that's used the Quebec, they can't say enough good about it. So it's definitely a good yeast to have on hand and use in some of your brandies. I think is probably in wines where they shine. But I guess some people use them in their corns and grains too. All right, that's what I'm doing. All right, let me get these pictures up here and I'll show you what I'm. I think it was sent on Facebook Messenger. Yeah, it was. Yeah, I told him I was going to share these pictures, but I'm definitely not going to share his name. So there's picture 1. And there's picture 2. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. All right. I can't put them both up at the same time, but I'm going to show them to you. Well, let me get those out of my screenshots and put them over here, because these are going to be things that I use from now on to illustrate while when you're doing brandies and things that are going to ferment for a long period of time, while it's a good idea to all right, perfect. Now let me see here. Okay. Let me find them. All righty. So let's look at this. This is an apple mash. This is an apple mash that was from the exact same apple mash that this was from, and these pictures were taken at the exact same time. And there's other barrels of this same mash. So, but some of the mash was taken out of the barrel and put in this barrel with just a lid and no airlock. This was over an airlock. Look how fresh those look and clean. And see, fermentation is a controlled rot. And the more control that we can have of it, the better flavors and product that we're going to get when we get done. Now, this is the reason this is fresh like this is because there's no oxygen on this fruit, or very, very little oxygen on this fruit, because carbon dioxide builds up in here and forces all the oxygen out. So this doesn't oxidize and bacteria can't thrive. Whereas here, oxygen lived here, bacteria bred here, and this is the difference between airlock and no airlock. No other difference, no stirring, no nothing. The only difference was a little time, and these pictures were taken side by side. It's amazing. But if that isn't enough reason to tell you, and people swear now it's just fine, and it is. You can take this and you can run it, and you can get you some alcohol on it. It ain't gonna hurt. It ain't gonna kill you. But you know damn good as well as I do, it's not going to taste as good as something like this. I mean, it's just, so that's the difference, you know. Now for grains, you know, grains usually ferment in, 3 or 4 days, and Clint taught some of these Quebec yeast ferments go even quicker. Most of your big distilleries and stuff, they open ferment, they don't care, because in 4 days it's getting run. He hadn't run them yet, Mash Bro. Did you tell me your name's Glenn once? I can't remember. Anyway, he hadn't run them yet. He's still letting them work and ferment off, and they're still going. But that's the difference so far. Crazy, isn't it? I mean, look how fresh those apples are. I mean, you can just, that's something you just eat and drink an apple wine. Now, would you like an apple wine out of that? I probably would. Would you want an apple wine out of that? Can't say that I would, So with brandies, you don't have to. Again, people swear up and down. I've done it this way for years. Trust me, it's never given me any problems. It will work fine. But is it going to taste as good as this? And you're not going to make an apple wine out of that. I hope not. But who knows? Maybe this shit just gets grungy, and it might make a crazy flavor. You never know. It might be good or better. I wouldn't, as a brandy, not as a wine. As a wine, I ain't drinking that shit. But that right there, hell yeah, all day. But yeah, that's a good little example of why sometimes it's better to use that airlock, you know, especially like I say for wines and things that are going to take a long period of time, or now that we're in colder weather and things are cooler and our mashes, or even our grain mashes, are taking a week or two now instead of just 4 days like they did when everything was perfect and warm. And you know, so if you don't have temperature control, Kavak, I always thought it was Kavek. Kavaki? I always thought it was Kaveki. Who have I heard? I don't know how them Nordics pronounce it. Oh man, I'm tired. I haven't been sleeping good. I don't know. Let's see here. Oh, interesting. Hmm, interesting. Good to know. Kvike. I've always heard it. I've heard it pronounced Quebec by several people. I don't know. I've never talked, I guess, to somebody that knew. Kvike. I think everybody I've ever heard it say it says Quebec. We're gonna fix that though. Moonshine cherries. I'd say, you know, there's no best, you know. I would say, you know, the sweeter cherries other than the tart ones, but I don't know. The tart ones probably make a good wine too. You just have to add, you know, sugars. But I would say it really depends. I do know that you don't want to grind the pits up because there's certain types of common cherries that we use that have really high content of amygdalin in them, and that 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 amygdalin converts to cyanide. I think it's cyanide hydroxide or cyanide something, and can be pretty toxic and make you sick or kill you. I'd say you would get some of that. You would get you some of that. I would say, Mash Bro, if you're just doing grains and you're in the 80s and everything's happening in 3, 4, 5 days, you don't even have to worry. I just for mine, I'll put a towel over it and just loosely fit the lid on the bucket. I don't airlock my grains. You know, I don't unless it's winter and it's going to take 2 or 3 weeks, and then I'll definitely put an airlock on it. I usually use fresh. I mean, jarred, you know, with the syrup and everything, kind of give you a little head start with the syrup. You know, maraschino cherries are great, but it's also very expensive. I usually wait for things to go on sale, you know, because I'm cheap and I'm a tight ass, and So I wait for fruits to go on sale, and I have certain points and price points that when it gets to that point, I'll pull the trigger. And cherries hadn't gone down enough in the last few years for me to make some more of my cherry wine. But I've got some really good cherry wine in there. It really needs to be drank. It's probably a couple of years old and maybe starting to go on its way down a little bit. So I need to break them out, share them, and drink it. Probably drink quite a few this Christmas with family and stuff, but they all like it. But it's just I wait till it gets to a certain price and they have it. But it's I don't know the name of the cherries. They're just a big old. They're big dark cherries. Not maraschino though. But it's just the ones that the grocery store gets. I don't. If you live in an area that grows a lot of cherries around, I'm sure you could probably pick them up pretty cheap. Sour ones, I'd say, yeah, they make some interesting flavors. It doesn't have to be the sweetness. You can add the sugar for the fermentation part and just use the character of the sour cherry, for the wine itself, and to give it that, that bitter note that you like in wines, or, some people like in wines. Bean cherries, maybe that's what it was, Richard. That sounds right. I believe it was bean. Bean. Yeah, I believe that's. Let me double check that, but I'm pretty damn sure that's what they were, being. Yeah, those big bean cherries sure were. Yep, that's what they were, being. Thank you. I don't remember shit anymore. I'm starting to get old and forget everything I ever knew. But yeah, beans. That sounds like a plan. We all need to get together for sure. And these festivals are a good time. I was hoping to get to Beattyville this weekend, but I don't guess I'm going to be able to. I got that football thing to go to, and I kind of got to be there. I was an all-conference football player the year. I played all 4 years of varsity. Actually, I played 6 years varsity. I dressed varsity when I was in 7th grade. One of the very few that did. So I kind of have to go to that. I think I'm one of the only people, and that's something I need to go talk about. I think I'm only one of the only people that made the all-conference teams that didn't make it in the Hall of Fame. So that discussion will be had this weekend. You bet your ass on that. It's like, wait a minute here, And this was voted by all the coaches in the conference that did it, not just my coach putting me out there. All them coaches, like, a lot of the players feared me. I loved contact, man. I loved hitting them. We were headhunters, man. We played pretty rough football. We couldn't play that way then. They'd flag us for targeting every play. We targeted every play. Yeah. Yeah, Lactobacillus brevis. Yeah, I'd say that's one of the best advice you can get. Now, I'm not sure about the liquid yeast. I've never done a lot with liquid yeast. and propagating liquid yeast. I mean, how exactly do you do that, Clint? I mean, is there flocculants that have actually live yeast in it, or is it just in the liquid itself? So how would you propagate that? And I guess as long as you kept it alive and kept that, you know, like a sour mash or something going, you could keep that yeast alive in it. Yeah, I've been making more and more last 10 years. You know, I kind of got on a big wine kick in the last decade. You know, before that, I kind of burnt myself out on, you know, making all grain and doing grain all the time. You know, corn mash, cornmeal, sugar, you know, thin mash, and just grains and combos. Um, but something that I do want to, you know, I started getting into wines because I didn't really know a lot about wines and brandies, and I never really drank a lot of wine when I was younger. I didn't like it that much, other than the Boone's Farm to get the, you know, party started, kind of, so to speak. But started making a lot of wines, got interested in it. You know, my fiance loved, you know, the sweet heat, but she can't drink it anymore because she's got diabetes, and we don't want to mess with that. But it's a lot of fun and very flavorful. You know, I I've taken a lot of these wines that I've made, and they tasted pretty good as wines, and I didn't intend for them to remain wines. You know, I would want to make a brandy. So I went ahead and distilled it, and after I distilled it, it's like I'm not getting a lot of notes from the fruit here. And you start thinking, it's like, you know, this is a decent, you know, neutral kind of tasting brandy spirit. It's kind of sweet. I can't tell you what fruit it was made from sometimes. And, you know, it's okay tasting, tastes good, you know, and all, but look what I lost. You know, I lost that wine that had such a good, robust, deep, complex flavor in exchange for pretty much a almost neutral sweet brandy. So if I can, I try to keep more and more as wines, and sometimes I'll keep a little bit to the side and do a prolonged secondary fermentation with that, and just distill another part of it. But I do have some blackberry wine that I need to clarify, back sweeten, and bottle or distill. I'll have to do a little tasting here in the next few weeks. And of course, this is why I like making wine and brandies and distilling and all that, because you don't have to get in a hurry, and I don't do anything in a hurry. I take my time doing things, and I'll get around to doing certain things, and you know, kind of like that merch thing I got going. I mean, I'll get around to it. Eventually, one of these days, I'll get it. Hope I will be done before Christmas. I'm thinking about making an eBay page and putting some stuff on there. If people want to go check it out, I'll be able to give them a link to the eBay page, and they can deal with it all there, pay for it there, order it there, and I'll just ship it out. Probably be a lot easier for me, um, for sure. And I can just put size charts on there because it'll be tough to do returns. You know. So it is in the trub. Okay. So this is just basically yeast that's dissolved in liquid. Okay, so when you say liquid, it's not like a clear water. This is a cloudy, yellowish tan liquor that has the yeast mixed with the liquid. I've never dealt with it. Yeah. So it sounds like a good price. Yeah, I've never dealt with any of the liquid yeast or heard anybody talk about propagating them or anything like that. I wasn't really sure. So I guess they just mix it with a distilled water and nutrients and keep it alive that way, or mixed in a liquid. Interesting. Yeah, that sounds really interesting. We were talking about that last week, Richard. I definitely sounds really good. The hibiscus. We used to have some really large hibiscus. It's like the moonflower, right? That's the big, huge. We used to have one. I called it the moonflower because it had a big old white um, flower on it. It was huge, like a basketball almost size. All right, let me see here. All right, Richard, I got your Alcorn recipe and corn and wheat, and then I'll do a multi-grain thing too for you, and I will send those directly to you. It probably won't be tonight, but I've got some things going on this weekend and stuff, but I'll definitely get it to you, and I made a note, so I'll try to get it to you either tonight or tomorrow. Now I've got some different recipes that I'll give you, but the one that I'm going to do, the step to step, may take a little bit longer. I may also give you, let me see what it's called. And for anybody that wants it, I'm pretty sure that I put this in the militia page as well as it's the Stampede Stills recipe book. I've got 10 different files of the same damn thing. I guess it's been copied over and over and over. There's M7. I don't know if there's different versions. There's an F version, M7. I'll check and see if there. Let me see size wise. 22.8 meg. Oh, 5.19. So this one probably does have a little bit more in it. But I think they sent these out with every Stampede still they sold back in the day. This is older stuff, but there's quite a few recipes in here, and a lot of them look pretty good. They're just home recipes that have been contributed, but I can let me see if I've got those in the militia files here real quick. No. No, if you're in the DIY, they're pretty strict about them. Let's see, the militia files. So maybe in the it's on the DIY. They may have taken it out of the militia page because it may have some kind of copyright. Let me see here. Let me see if you're in the DIY. Or did you? Okay, Richard, you are in the DIY. Awesome, brother. If you want to go to the DIY Shining Stuff page, And at the very top, you'll see where it says DIY Shine and stuff, and it'll say private group and our members, and it'll show the pictures of members. Right below that, you'll see where it says discussion, featured, members, media, files, and guides. Click on files, and then just keep right on that same exact line. Drop down just a little bit, and you'll see where it says files, and it'll pull up a bunch. If you look in those files, I think it's like the second one down. But let me make sure that this is the same one that I'm looking at here. Let me open it up, because this one is like much larger. And yes, it is. It is the right one. Okay. So this one will have a shitload of wow, I almost closed all tabs. You know what that would have fucking done? Oh my God, that would end the podcast. I mean, I just about clicked that damn button. Wow, that was close. Very close. Just say it. Shit. If I could just type, man, that damn. That ass fingers. Just saying, I got people asking DIY these little side chats. I don't know why they don't ask in groups. They get in these little side chats. I don't. Half the time we don't even see them because I thought Facebook was ending them. I was really happy. I'd rather people just ask it on the page so everybody can help on the page and not deal with. All right. Okay. So anyway, Richard, let me know if you can find those. What's up, G Lives? What's happening, brother? Liquid yeast looks like milk or a yeast starter bomb. Yeah, okay. So they basically just mix the yeast in a solution to help preserve it, maybe, I guess. That I can follow. I thought it was just like a clear fucking liquid and the yeast was somehow, something different. Okay, I'm an idiot. That explains things. Steve, brother, I'm an admin there, and I run that page, and your idea of why would be wrong because I've not banned anybody from there in a long time. So there you have it. Maybe you didn't join, but you definitely weren't removed because there's only 2 people that moderate that group. And I was going to make Clint a mod, but it won't allow me to do that. I don't know why. But Moonshine Shua and Cyrus are group experts in there. We got some experts. But as far as admin, it's me and Eric Ayers. Eric's kind of on a sabbatical. He's got a lot of shit going on in his life, and Tyler, he's a pro cornhole player and got other shit going on in his life too. So it's pretty much me and Eric started the group. So I would search for you. I've got 1,000 Steves in there, man. But yeah, you should be in there. Now, maybe a year ago, we had another moderator in there, admin moderator in there that did ban a lot of people for a lot of different reasons. So that could happen. But if you've been in there recently, you should still be in there. Richard, are you seeing? Have you found it yet, brother? Let me know. If not, I'll send it to you in a Facebook message format. What you been up to, G Liz? I ain't seen you in a little bit. Right? Yeah. I just thought it was something different. I didn't. I understand yeast, but I just thought it was somehow they've broken them down or some crazy shit. In my mind, I've never just. But that makes sense. It's kind of basically a yeast starter. I've just never used them. I don't even know if I've ever seen liquid yeast like that. See, but Richard, I saw you're in the DIY. If you can find that, grab it. And in the meantime, I will look because there's some guys also asking about apple. What were you asking about? Oh, corn and corn with grain. There should be a lot of good grain ones in there. But I am going to make one, and I've got you written down here. So the one that just does everything step to step. I mean, I'm going to tell you how to do everything just like I was doing earlier. Put 20 gallons, boil it, pour out, 17, hold 3 back, and all that. I'm gonna do it word for word for word. I did that. We did an episode on here where we just basically started beginning to end with the equipment that you need and what you need to have together. And I probably should have just named that podcast something different and saved that video to refer back to so people could find it pretty easily, because it was a pretty good episode. We did that for grain and we did it for Brandy, but I think we can do it again, can't we, Clint? We can put something together again and yeah, it's possible, brother. And actually, I'm thinking about changing the name from DIY Shine and Stuff to DIY Shine and Off Grid Living, or because I want to try to get in, um, not necessarily in this discussion and not on this podcast certainly, but canning and preserving, and also plants and making tinctures and medicinal things. I'm going to try to stay away from as much medicinal as I can, because it really opens you up to some potential lawsuits when you start recommending people take some things instead of going to see a doctor. And I don't want to do that, but we're gonna go over things, and we're gonna pretty much portray them as things that this is what happens when the shit hits the fan, if and when the shit hits the fan, to if you don't have a doctor to go to, or you don't have any ways of going to a pharmacy or getting medicine that you need. There is the old holistic way. um, I can post a link for you fellas. Let me put this in here. Yeah, that's the DIY Shine and Stuff page. Got a lot of members in there. Its activity varies. I think most of the people in there just read and listen and watch. And I'm going to try to focus on adding more to the file section there and in the militia page for those people, because a lot of people are afraid to, they're not afraid to join the group because there's no harm in that. But when you start asking pointed questions, they don't want to implicate themselves. They worry about the legality of it, as, some people, should, especially if people live in South Carolina and areas where they're pretty crazy strict on some of this stuff, right? So, or is it North Carolina? I can't remember. Brother, I cannot, for some reason, I cannot add you as a moderator in the group. I don't know what the hell's wrong. May end up just, I think, let me pull it up again. I may have to get, see, now with everybody else, this is crazy. With everybody else, here's my options when I click it. Suspending group, turn on post approval, limit activity, ban from group, invited admin, invite as moderator, invite as group expert, remove member. I get that option for every person on here except Clint. Clint, suspending group, turn on post approval, limit activity, ban from group, invite as admin, remove member. It's either admin or nothing. And I'll have to talk to Eric before I add any admins, because that's something that he and I both have to agree on. But I don't know if it's because the way your page is set up. I don't know. From the very first day, I tried, and so I'll talk to Eric and we can get you in probably as an admin. I'm sure he won't object, but because it's both of our groups, I want to run it past him, even though I pretty much run the group. I owe him that. He and I started it. Actually, he and I started it, and he did most of the work for the first year on it. And I'm admin and moderator in like 7 or 8 different groups, a lot of different groups and stuff. And I try to share my time between them all, but I do focus on DIY and the militia, because those are two of my main groups that I want to focus on. That I'm known for. So I'll talk to Eric, and we may have to just get you in there as admin, because it won't allow me to put you in as a moderator. I don't know. I've never seen it. And it may be because of the type account that you got set up on Facebook, maybe. I don't know. But I just thought it was, let me see. Just try to find somebody. I mean, I can't even add this group expert. That's just so weird. That's not even an option. Let me find somebody. We got a lot of new members too. It's awesome. Trying to find like a page, like a page group instead of just an individual group. Did you set yours up like as a page? But I don't know, because I remember from the very get-go I was trying to do it. I'll talk to no, this is a separate page. This is a DIY shine and stuff page. It's a page that Eric and I set up. It may predate the militia page. If not, it was right about the same exact time. Does it tell us how long? Let me look and see. Here Um, yeah, it doesn't, where does it tell you when the group is formed? Oh, no. Oh, so the community chats I was talking about, they're going away on October 5th. That can't come soon enough. Those are kind of aggravating. And one moment, I don't know why this stupid page sees all this good stuff, all this good content that people want to post as spam. I hate that shit. I wish I could turn all this shit off. I'm going to have to focus on that. Okay, I'm not going to post some of that. Yeah, some of that doesn't have anything to do with moonshine, so there you go. Anyway, did they, Steve? Well, I know that Cyrus does an off-grid kind of moonshine page, and I hope it wasn't that page because he's. I haven't met him in person yet, but I've watched a lot of his stuff. He's a great guy, very knowledgeable. And I hope it wasn't them. Still in the clear. Is that Jesse? All right, let's see. Yeah, still in the clear. That's Cyrus. I guess Jesse's still it. That's right. Still in the clear. Cyrus, great guy, and I see that. Let me see. Yeah, that group's still there. So good. Yeah, I like that off grid stuff, man. I'm into that, and the DIY shine and stuff. The stuff was basically just going to be all the equipment and all that kind of stuff. But Eric named it, and I was kind of whatever. But I think I'd like to take it to a little bit of off grid living or survival kind of stuff, and kind of cover some putting food up, preserving foods and things, and also something interesting. A lot of people don't can or do a lot of this is when you're preserving, you have to lower your acidity, right, to keep things fresh and from bacteria buildup. So that's another reason why we lower the pH in our mashes to 5.2, 5.3 range, is to help inhibit the growth of bacteria because they don't like that acidic. So when you can, it's just like fermenting. A lot of people ferment a lot of foods, not for alcohol, but to eat. There's a lot of good fermented foods. So I'd like to get into, fermenting foods. Probably going to try to convince Lisa to come over and help out and do some, maybe post some stuff of tinctures and plant stuff. She's very knowledgeable in the plant stuff. Anybody else out there that's very knowledgeable in plants and tinctures are welcome to also come in post and start getting more active in there with that, because I think it's something that's important. I think it's along with distilling, canning, it's kind of all becoming lost arts, right? And foraging for food, edible plants. A lot of these things are very important to us older people, and I think it may at one point in time become a pretty important thing for the younger generation to start thinking about, referring to especially if times get tough. And we ain't the best of times right now. There's a lot of division, and everybody. Yeah, that's a problem. And it's tough. As an admin with the militia and with a lot of different groups, it's tough. You got a lot of egos, and a lot of people want to be the big man. They want to be the moonshine god. They want to be, renowned and all these things, but they don't want to put the time and effort into, becoming a prominent person in the community. And how you do that is by doing what me and Clint do. We dedicated a lot of our time here, a couple of days a week, and helping people out, answering questions, and you know, I I think a lot of people here, we put our egos aside. We're all learning. You know, we share information. We don't profess to know it all. If we don't know something, we'll find you an answer. That's I don't know of any person now. There's Patrick Heiss could probably answer every question we could ask, and he could probably tell us questions that we haven't asked that we should. But and Alan Bishop's very knowledgeable too. But Patrick Heiss is the man. He's probably the most knowledgeable person as far as practical on-hand knowledge, along with the science. I mean, he's the full spectrum, right? Um, me and Alan more hands-on, know a little bit about the science, but this dude, I mean, he runs a laboratory. He does genetic sequencing and a lot of this stuff that would just blow my mind. And I don't know. I'm not sure about Alan. I'm not going to speak for anybody else, but it would just, trying to do all that would just poof my mind. I mean, I'm sure I could be taught to do it, but I don't know anything about it, right? And I don't profess to. And that's another problem with the community too, is a lot of people profess to have knowledge that they don't. And a lot of people think that having knowledge means that you know it all. And I don't know very many people that know it all. Matter of fact, I don't think there's anybody that knows it all. So, but there's a lot of egos colliding, and it's tough. Get a bunch of hillbilly redneck moonshine making fools that are getting drunk and talking shit. That shit's gonna happen. It's just the way it is. Maybe if everybody was older and mellow and didn't take testosterone shots and get all jacked up or young and with raging hormones and got to be the baddest, the best, and all this, that, and egos to, no, I don't give a shit about any of that. That doesn't impress me at all. I just think that everybody should be able to get along and um, have conversations and differing opinions and want to help and share. A lot of people, they just want to use you as a stepping stone, and they'll step on your head and push you underwater just to stay afloat, and they don't care who they. Yeah, I'll talk to him, brother. We'll get you in there, even if it's admin. Well, I'll do some inquiries. There may be. As a matter of fact, I'll make a note. But it doesn't matter. We'll get you as admin. I just can't do it without Eric's approval because it's our group, and I'm not. Even though I'm running it right now, it's still our group, and I ain't like that. I'm not a control freak, but we will definitely. I'd like to be able to add you as a moderator and a group expert, and I can't add you as either. So and I couldn't even add you as group expert, even add you as a admin. So I don't know what the hell's wrong with the damn page. But I'll ask Eric and see if his options are different, because he's the actual one that put the page together. So maybe it has to come from him. So maybe he has that option. I'll get up with him. It'll take a week or two, because let me make a note. And I'm glad I'm semi-retired, because goddamn, man, I don't, once you get semi-retired and you start doing shit, and it's like you don't have time to do the shit you need to do. How the fuck did I ever find time to work, man? I mean, like, goddamn, man, seems like I'm busier now than I was when I'm working. Maybe I just need to work and blow all this other shit off, man. It's like, fuck. So yeah, we'll talk to her. We'll get it hooked up. Oh, don't do that. No, we'll see. And if it boils down to it, I mean, we'll get you in one way or the other. But I would like to add you as an expert, group expert. Either way, whether we add you as admin or not, I'd like to be able to add you as a group expert, and I don't have that option. But you would definitely be one of the group experts, and I would want to present you as such. Yeah, but you got to leave it to feedback. I know what you're talking about, though. I've watched their show a lot, and I understand. And then at the same time, you got some shows that are loud as hell, and you say, man, you need to turn that audio down, and they don't even read the chat or listen. I don't know. I've had also had a buddy, man. He's like, man, you need to turn that TV down in the background. That's all the fuck I could hear. And I'm like, why didn't you say that in the damn podcast? Why did you wait till afterwards? He's like, I didn't want to say nothing. I'm like, man, if I'd have known, hell, we got Trump blaring in the background on Fox. Hell, yeah, I get a lot too, Clint. And encourage them to come to DIY, man, where we can deal with them there, and get them in the members, and get them reading files and stuff. Yeah, I think so too, brother. It's definitely, I don't know. I don't want to use those words, and I hope it doesn't. But no, I can't get on politics. This for another show. I think Fridays we're gonna do a show where we can talk more freely about politics on Fridays. I think kind of coming up, and let's try. I'm gonna try to keep educational and all that separate, because I don't care what party you are. I know there's Democrats out there that don't agree with everything Democrats doing, just like there's Republicans out there that don't agree with all the Republicans are doing. And if I could be an independent in my state and vote in primaries, I would. But in my state, you have to be one or the other so you can vote in the primaries. So I had to pick one. And I used to be one, but I'm not it anymore. I switched. And I'm not going to say anything more about that. But anyway, I want to make sure that Richard, he hadn't replied. I want to make sure that Richard was able to find that. Did y'all find the recipe book in the militia, or in the DIY page? I'm pretty sure I put it in the militia page too. They may have taken it out, or I may not put it in there because it's copyrighted. But I mean, I don't think they care. They hand it out with stills. It's old. I don't even think the copyright's in effect anymore. It's so old. Exactly. And there's a lot of haters. It's all you do is just Google the answers. No, I know quite a bit of the answers. Sometimes I'll Google it so I'll be able to elaborate on what I know, and maybe I'll see something on Google that I wasn't thinking about. I know you helped me out a lot with that. Things that I failed to even think about. Good points, and we definitely complement each other on that, and love having you here, man. It's definitely helps me out a whole lot, especially when I get long-winded trying to help somebody else out. You dealing with all these individual questions as they come and answer them. That's invaluable to me, man. I can't tell you how much I appreciate your help, Clint. And Scott, he'll jump on here once in a while, help a little bit. Absolutely, Jimmy. For about 30 years, 30 or 40 years, until I got a grinder and started making my own cornmeal. Hell yeah, man. I used to use cornmeal and sugar. I never did any converting and all that. I just used what's called a thin mash, and it made decent liquor. It was hot, but had an okay corn flavor. And hell, you 20, 30 years old, and this was back in the 70s and 80s and early 90s, and I made shitloads of cornmeal mash, using sugar and cornmeal. Decent shine, and in fact, I'd say a large majority of what was made in Eastern Kentucky and Appalachia over the years has been cornmeal and sugar, without a lot of converting and a lot of that stuff. A lot of thin mash going on. It was the easiest. If you see these big old bags of sugar and big old bags of corn, I don't see any jars of amylase or any bags of barley or malt laying around or anything like that. So, that was pretty much the standard for making moonshine back in the days, is just cook the corn up, add the sugar. You get that corn flavor, you get that sugar to help make the moonshine. And you know, I'd say a good probably 70% of shine or more was probably made that way without a lot of conversions and malts and things of that nature. Not saying that they didn't, it's just that most Appalachian shiners that were backwoods shiners that weren't big, huge, I'm not talking about the guys that had 40 or 50 submarine pots that had, now they may have done conversions and done a lot of that, the big producers and some of the big city producers, they may have had access to malt houses and things of that nature. But, in a lot of Appalachia, there wasn't a lot of access to malt houses, and it was expensive. So I would say the majority of if anything was malted, they'd malt the corn and just do a malted corn without any or little sugar. But I would say probably the majority of it was the thin mash shine, what they call thin mash, and it's just cornmeal, sugar, and water and yeast. Use bread yeast, and you could probably you can tell it. Oh, I know, not at all. Not at all, brother. And yeah, I'm not trying to build anything. I have not made the first penny on podcasting and any of all this, that, and the other. I've sold one piece of merch, and I've got some pretty nice merch that I'm gonna sell, and it's gonna be very reasonably priced based on what my cost is. I'm gonna make maybe $10-15 on each item, which is $100 item. It's not gonna be very much, but I have to make it worth my time, and it's definitely not gonna be profitable after the time spent doing it all. It's still a losing proposition, but yeah, I guess that's the case, brother. Yeah, I'm getting slow, and my mind drifts off. I get busy doing something, and next thing you know, I'll forget it, and I'll wander off and do something else. And like, what was I? Oh, I was going to do this. And so I just wander from half completed chore to the next half completed chore, and eventually one of them gets completed. I agree. Yeah, and I get them, brother. And I can imagine you too all day long. I can show you a phone. I mean, and in the early mornings, you know, because I am a night owl, and a lot of people know I'm up late, and I game a lot late night, and I'm up late, and that's pretty well known. I'm a night owl, so you know, sometimes I'll say, well, I'm tired. I'll go to bed here at midnight. I'm getting messages and texts at 2, 3, 4 in the morning. They're expecting me to be awake, so I can't blame them for that. I just don't answer it. You know, I'll get it in the morning. Sorry, but actually, I'm gonna instead of shirt, I've got to get the artwork. The situation I've got is I've got the 3-piece. Y'all seen those, and I'm doing a T-shirt that's got the artwork of the 3-piece, but it's actually in 3 different pieces of art, and I'm trying to combine them all into one piece of art, and I'm trying to find somebody that can help me do that in GIMP, because I'm really good at photo editing on GIMP. I can take any picture and I can put somebody else's face in there, or I can, you know, take out certain things and color it in, and you never know it was there. I'm really good at painting with pixels and things like that, but I'm new at it, and it's not real user friendly. So I've got to find somebody. And again, I'm moving at old Santa pace. So you know, but I do have some bomber jackets that'll probably be. I ordered one, and I'm just gonna, you know, these patch kits that I've got are going to go on those. I'm not going to put any on leather vests. You know, we've had that discussion. I don't want anybody getting hurt running around in a cut with a 3-piece on, but we're going to put them on bomber jackets, and like me and Phil Billy talked about putting them on some of these big shirts, you know, like the Steven Seagal shirt he wears around, like an overshirt, looks pretty cool. But the T-shirts will have the decals. They'll be a lot cheaper, but it'll be the same looking 3-piece, but it actually is a little bit nicer looking because it's not embroidered. So the embroidery, you know, it's only like 7 or 8 colors, which probably I should have limited those colors to, you know, 5, and it probably cost me a little bit less, but it looks good. But I'll put every bit of that on. I'm gonna start a eBay page, and that way eBay, you know, somebody buys it on eBay, they can handle the money thing. I don't have to worry about cash. I don't trust Cash App and all these modern pay things where you pay on your phone and all that. I just don't. I know it's because I'm old and I don't know and I don't trust, and you know, I don't want my account getting cleared out. You know, so I'm just going to. Well, you gonna make a voodoo doll of me, mother? You gonna make a voodoo doll? You gonna make a little Santa doll? Oh, it's funny, brother. Are you gonna do the 23 of me and see if we can brothers? Yeah, thin mash is the way to go, man. It's better than sugar shine. It again, yeah, inverting your sugars or using dextrose instead of sugar works real well. But yeah, it's the best to make, and it's not bad. I mean, I drank that shit for many years. But I don't know, brother. You know, come to my fans only page. I'll show you a little more hair. But yeah, I think I'm afraid I'm gonna get voodoo dolls made of me, man. So I don't know. But I appreciate your laugh, man. That's funny. See, now that's the kind of stuff I like. The humor I like, and I've seen some funny shit. There's remember the girl come on at I call her ass eating Edith. Edith was her name. Edith. I guess that's why she named it. But she always talked about eating ass and shit, and it was funny. You know, people that come in and say just off the wall crazy shit like that. You know, we'll laugh and scroll on, but trolls will just have to delete and move on. Roger. Well, now the issue is, I promised that I wouldn't put them on a vest, because that's, I can see where it's an issue, and I don't want any members getting hurt. And I can see, being on a cut, that some bike and MCs may have an issue with it. I talked to the Outlaws of Dayton, the enforcer there, and he looked at it and he's like, no MC patch, no diamond patch, no location thing, so it's not any a turf issue. He's like, that's not an MC vest. I don't see where most people wouldn't have an issue with it. But at the same time, there's always a dickhead out there that's going to see it and get offended by it. So I'm not going to put them on any kind of vest or anything like that. As far as selling patch kits, I'll have to talk to Phil about, and if people want to assume the responsibility of putting it on a vest, that's on them. I can't tell grown-ass men what they can and can't do. But putting them on bomber jackets, it shouldn't be an issue. I don't think any old pilots are going to come beat us up. Force us, take it off my bomber jacket, But I do, I don't want to make light of it. I do see, I didn't really think about how MCs would react to a leather vest, and I can understand how some might, and I don't want anybody getting hurt wearing it. But at the same time, we're all grown-ass men. If you want to assume responsibility and buy a T-shirt and just rip it off the T-shirt and sew it onto a vest, I mean, that's on you. I can't prevent people from doing those kind of things. I just don't want anybody getting hurt over it. And I think if somebody were to come up and say, hey, tell you wearing that 3 patch in my turf, and I'm like, well, we're the militia, man. We're not an MC. We got a lot of MC members in our militia, and they don't wear it because they can't. You can't wear somebody, another vest for another group like that. But some may have issue with it, some may not, and that's personal issue. You don't buy one. Yeah. I'm going to put them on bomber jackets. Yeah, that'll be on the eBay page, on a bomber jacket and a shirt, kind of an overshirt, and then the ones that are similar will be on a T-shirt. It'll look like a 3-piece, on a T-shirt, but it's going to be a decal, and I can sell those a lot cheaper because we got a lot invested in that middle patch with the color. Those aren't cheap. First places I shopped around for those, it was 120, 90, 79, 69, 79, I think 79, 89. Saw a lot in that price range for what I had, the colors, and I found a place out of China that did for like $39.95 each for $40 each, and I pulled the trigger on that because that was the cheapest I found it. Took a month, a month and a half to get in, but that was a pretty large investment, for me. So, I just can't, I got a bunch of vests too that I can't return. It's past the return date, and decent little vests. They're cheap vests, but I can't put the two together, and I'm not going to put them together, and I'm not going to sell them together and let somebody else just put it on there. That wouldn't be right either. I promised I wouldn't do that. So if somebody wants to buy a shirt and wants to go out there and buy a vest or a jacket or whatever and tear those off and put it on a vest, that's on them. I can't control people like that, but I'm also not going to eat $2,000 or $3,000 worth of patches because somebody's offended. I just can't eat that. So, but we'll get it all worked out. And, Phil and I've talked about it. The bomber jacket's going to be cool. And putting them on the big shirts will be cool. And then we'll have the T-shirts as well. If there's a specific jacket that you would like, If you want to order it off of Amazon or Target or wherever you order your clothes, Macy's, whatever, if you want to send it to me and save some money on that, I'll just charge you for the for the for the patches, or I can just send you the patches. I'll just send the patch kit, and you can iron them on and do it that way, or you can take it by seamstress and have them, professionally sewn on. I can't afford to do that, but so they're going to be ironed on to the bomber jackets. They'll be pretty cool. I mean, they're going to be an inexpensive bomber jacket. I'm trying to keep costs low. So I got $40. This is my cost. I got $40 into the big patch. The rockers are like $15, I think, maybe. Well, plus tax and shit. But they're the 12-inch. They're a little bit more than the 10s. And you can get those anywhere. Everybody's having those made these days. But for the militia, it's going to have to come from us. But so that's 55, $60, basically $60 invested in the patches. So, maybe 70, $75 for the kit with shipping and everything. That's making about $8 maybe on it. But there's also some bomber jackets out there in the $35 price range on Amazon that are okay. They seem to be decent results. And so I'm going to get some of those and iron them on, put them on the eBay page and let people, look at it, and then they can order it through eBay, and then I'll just directly order it from Amazon. It should be here in 2 days. I think they go up to 3X. They'll be pretty nice, lightweight jackets to wear, and they'll look pretty cool. And the prices, again, probably be right at 100. I'm not trying to make money on the jacket or any of all that, so it'd be maybe $100, $110, but 70 to 75 for the patch kit, and whatever the cost of the jacket is, you can just add that to that cost, and that'll put me at making about $10, $8 to $10 a piece on everything, and that's, after shipping, I probably lose money. So I can't lose. So whatever it is, I'm not at it trying to make money. My whole big thing was I wanted everybody to have these cool ass vests, and it was going to be awesome, and really didn't give a lot of thought to how other MCs would take it and stuff. So I just don't want anybody getting hurt over a stupid vest, and so I'm just going to put them on the jackets and shirts, and then do the t-shirts, and we'll just go that route. Yeah, the sets will be 75, and that includes shipping. So, I'll make maybe $10 on it, and that's all, and those will be on there as well. Or you can get up with me, and I can give the info, and you can just buy the patch set and put it on whatever you want to put it on, But if you do put it on a vest, that's on you. So do know that there's going to be some MC or some, prospect out there wanting to make a name for himself and wanting to bring a cut into the MC club. Look what I took off a dude wearing this in our turf and all that kind of thing. I know how it works. But most MCs are cool. Most could care less about any of that stuff. Once they look at it, it doesn't have 1% or triangle diamond on there. Doesn't have MC on there anywhere. Doesn't have any locational things for turf or anything anywhere. It's just a militia, and so. But hopefully, we can get them out there. Yeah. But get up with me on Facebook, and if you want one, I can give you, information, and I do have a PayPal. I tried to give it to somebody else, and this is the reason I'm setting up the damn eBay page because they couldn't get the PayPal thing, and I gave them what I thought was. Now I think I've got a PayPal link that I can use that I didn't have then. I did a little research on it, so if people have PayPal, we can go that route. And Zelle, my bank uses Zelle, so if you have a bank that uses Zelle, I can give you my Zelle information. But we will do it this way. If you Zelle me money, I want you to Zelle me $1, and that way we make sure that I receive that and it gets routed to the right account. And once we're sure of that, then you can always do that follow up, for the rest of the money. But yeah, for the patch kits, it's going to be 75, and that's going to include shipping to you. And the vests, or not the vests, but the bomber jackets are pretty nice looking bomber jackets. They're Hood Crew or something like that. Target sells them as well. They're like 30, 35 bucks. Be 110 or something like that for that. But if you have a lot of people have their own jackets and hoodies, putting it on hoodies. Some Tammy, I don't see Tammy didn't tune in tonight. I hadn't seen her on here yet tonight, but our gal from Lancaster that always tunes in. I hope she's okay tonight. She didn't tune in. I hope she's with family or something, having a good time. But yeah, just get up with me and I can get you the kit out and go that route. But I'm going to try to do the bomber jackets and I ordered it on Amazon. It should have been here today, maybe tomorrow, and so I'll see how well those look and take some pictures of it, of course, to put on the eBay page. And so I'll sell the patch kits and the bomber jacket on eBay. There's also, you can get on Amazon, and they make some name things that you can put on your front, like your name. So if you have a certain moonshine name that's used separate from yours, like Hellbilly, you can get you a little, square patch for Hellbilly. They've got a lot of decent deals on there for patches and stuff. But I guess for the vests that I do have, we're going to try to make just vests for people that, all these people that have their, pull some of these out, stickers, different stickers and stuff, like Morgan's and ours and lots of different stickers. There's Tom's Crummy Shine, lots of different stickers that you want to, we can have a sticker vest. So you can, and I guess you'll probably have to use some of that spray adhesive on the back of the sticker. Like, what's that spray stuff they put on headliners? It's like sticky stick from hell, and it don't come out. Spray the back of the sticker and put it on your vest so it'll stay. And actual, get little patches like, middle finger patches and all kinds of cool patches that you can get off Amazon to put on them. So I got a good deal on the vests, and so they'll go pretty cheap, but I'm not going to sell patch kits and the vest to the same, at the same time. I just can't. No, that's no. Yeah, spray adhesive. Yeah. So I'm not going to sell a vest and a patch kit. I can't do that. I promised that I wouldn't, and I'm going to keep my promise. I'll do that. But anyway, that's in time. I'll have more on that before Christmas. I definitely want to have all the t-shirts and everything and all this set up, and by November, mid-October, early November, so people can start thinking about buying Christmas presents for hubbies and boys and girlfriends and all that. Also, I will say Damon and Tom have some new t-shirts out for the ladies. All the t-shirts in the past have been pretty much geared towards the guys, and now we've got some for the ladies. Also, Shonda has some, I guess like a bomber gal, I don't know, like the old pinup gal t-shirts as well, and those look really nice. And some in pink for some of the ladies, because everything we've sold up to this point's been in black. So check out some of the new stuff they've got coming out. They've got, I think, some new different things coming out. We're going to try to mix it up a little bit and have, you know, a variety of stuff and not everything just the same old, same old. And but yeah, for some of the gals, there's some nice. Can't remember some of the wording, something about the sisters and stuff. So more things to think about. I know the one Shonda's doing is going to be it's for a charity. So all the proceeds will go to proceeds or profit, I guess. I don't know if will go to charity. I think it's not the children. It's not St. Jude's. Maybe the Children's Burn. It's one of those. It's a really good cause, and it's can't remember which one it is. It's not St. Jude's, and I'm not sure if it's for the Ronald McDonald House or for the children burn victims. I know they've got a lot of that going on up there in Cincinnati. They actually have a place there, the Shriner Hospital for children burn victims, but I can't remember exactly what it was. I'll have to look at Shonda's page and find it. But she's a great gal and really good person. Her and Andrew both great people, and they'll have. And if you're into the edibles kind of thing and the vaping real vapes, they can help you out with a lot of that stuff too. It's legal there in Ohio recreationally, and she has pretty good. She does quite a bit of baking. She's a busy gal. She's a busy gal, and she's been getting on some podcasts lately too. I've been seeing her on some of these podcasts that I watch. So yeah, great people and a great cause. I can't remember. I think it might be Ronald McDonald House. I could be wrong, but it's for children, you know, and a good cause. So we definitely want to promote that. These are iron-on, but you can also sell them. Yeah, this is yeah, you can get the embroidery patches on eBay and Amazon. There's shitloads of them. You know, I'm gonna probably put some on the vest. I may put some of those old Odin type, you know, Nordic patches. They've got some big 10. Now those big patches are 2-color, and you can buy those for like 15, you know, 15, 20 bucks, but they're black and white, you know, but you start adding colors to them, man, the price goes up really quick, really quick. What's going on, Matt? Good to see you, brother. All right, I skipped a question here. I missed it. Bourbon Tribe. Got 7 gallons of muscadine wash to run in the morning. Picked it up from the wine. Awesome. That is awesome. Pretty excited about it. I've never been able to run anything that I picked myself. That's great, man. Let us know how it turns out. And put a bottle or two of that aside. Do you like wine? Because I always like to keep a bottle or two of mine set to the side and keep as wine. And I've also been known to take a little bit of my brandy and kind of pour back into that wine and fortify it and make a real strong wine that's got that good strong, you know, flavor as well. Sweeten it up a little bit. It's a hell of a lot better than some of the syrups they're mixing with these days. Yeah, I'll show you the pass. Oh, let's see if I can pull this out. Here it is. Everything is down. Lord have mercy. Everything's a house of cards here, man. But there's the actual, that's the embroidered patch. And you can see it's got like a gray, a dark gray, a black, a white, a red for the cigar, the tan for the cigar, the yellow for the corn, the green for the corn. I don't even count. And then the white for the jar, it's a different color. So, you know, there's I don't know. I think it's 7 or 8 colors. Let's see. Yeah, the jar gray and the pistol gray, that's 1, 2, and the white. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 7 colors. No, 8, because the scarf has 2 different shades of gray. 2 shades of gray. So that's, oh, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 8 colors. There's 8 fucking colors on it. That's why it costs $40. Come on, man. But they're nice. Wait till you see them, man. They're beautiful patchwork. It's beautiful. They did a really good job. Pirate Crawl, Destin, and Dolphin. Awesome, Clint. In fact, let me all right, let's see. Let me pull this up real quickly. It should be on the militia page. And somehow I got off that page. Damn it. Let's see here. Scrolling down. Damn it, where is that? I guess we're going to start pinning certain things. It's weird how things drop. I could do a podcast and post the video, and in 10 minutes it'll be like down the page past stuff that was put on there yesterday. I don't know how that happens. But we've also, if you want to go on the militia page, scroll down and Big Easy posted the Still Talking podcast with Royce Neely on there. That's a really good episode to listen to. Royce seems to be pretty knowledgeable distiller. He's been doing it a long time, since he was a kid too. I'm trying to find Shonda's t-shirt. I guess it's going to have to be posted again so we can keep it kind of bumped up to the top. Here we go. Yeah, proceeds going to Ronald McDonald House, and that's, I think they handle burn victims, if I'm not mistaken, up there in Ohio. I know the Shriners Hospital, they got that up there as well. Ronald McDonald House might not be the same, but damn good cause, and some pretty cool looking t-shirt. I guess that's Shonda on there. So let me see if I can get a screenshot of that and share it with y'all. And let's see. Oh shit, I gotta take it from screenshots and move it over. Okay, just a second. It won't take a second. Well, it's already been a second, hasn't it? But I think I got it now. Here we go. That's Shonda. Yeah, that's the pages, and they've got it in pink too, and it'll make a really good shirt for the gals too, for the lady in your life. So be thinking about that for Christmas. And I'm thinking there was some others that maybe Damon. Oh yeah, here we go. Damon's got these. Yeah, that's what. Okay. Let me screenshot these. Because I think Ann was inquiring about some too. So let's see here. Let's move these. All right, yeah, that's one Shonda has, and then well, here's some of the ones that Damon has, and it's like Sisterhood. I thought this said Booty Besties, but it says Bootleg. when I first saw it, I could have sworn that said Booty Besties, and I'm like, okay. But those are some more shirts that for the ladies. So something to think about. Christmas coming up, so we'll have quite a bit of merch. I don't know. I guess just get in touch with Damon or Shonda on those two. Or get up with Damon on those. But yeah, for me on the patch kits, if you want to get a patch kit, send me info on Facebook, and I'll get you my Zelle or PayPal, and we can take care of it that way. Or once I get my eBay page set up, my eBay store set up, you can just get it from there. Awesome. Yeah, Steve, if y'all hadn't seen some of Steve's artwork, man, he's got one of these laser engraving machines. He's got a lot of interesting artwork, and he can hook you up if you like mirrors and stuff, and you have a business or a bar or something like that, and you want to have a mirror made or something like that. I don't know if he set up just to do one-offs. I'm sure he could for the right price, but I've seen his work. He does some really nice stuff, and I'm sure his laser engraving is not just on glass, but what all can you do with it, Steve? Can you do metal and wood and I guess everything? All right, Richard. You and Charlene take care, brother. It's good seeing you. Thanks for dropping in. God bless you, brother. Say a prayer for our old buddy Tom Pernell tonight. We're gonna miss him. Have a good one, brother. Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's got all kinds. Do you have an eBay store set up, Steve? If not, you should probably do that, man, because it's, I know it's hard to go to all these festivals and pack glass, like a lot of these mirrors and just glass pieces, and I'm sure but I've seen your stuff, man. I mean, you could sell the shit out of that at festivals if the price was right. You got to kind of price it to the demographic, but yeah, yeah, we still going strong, bro. Um, yeah, well, I remember you now, Mike. I won't be here tomorrow on here, but any questions you got, brother, just go to the Moonshine Militia page or the DIY Shining Stuff page, and and we've got people there that can help you out anytime, pretty much 24/7. We got night owls like me that can handle it at night, and others during the day. You know, it may take a little bit getting the answer, but we're here on Fridays, or I'm sorry, we're here on Saturdays and Wednesdays at 8 Eastern, and we generally go to 10, maybe 11 if I get long-winded and drinking. Uh, but yeah, we're here just to help people out, answer questions, and chat about Shine in general. We're gonna start doing a Friday shit show again page, but we're gonna maybe limit it to so few guests, so everybody's not trying to overtalk each other. And we're maybe might get into a little bit more political talk and talk about the country and the state of affairs, and maybe get a little bit away from just education and moonshine and talk about more things like that then. But we're, you know, I won't be here this Saturday, but usually we're here Wednesdays and Saturdays at 8 Eastern. So anytime you got a question, jump in here, man. There's no stupid questions. Nobody's going to browbeat you. Nobody, you know, we might have a troll or two that we have to deal with from time to time, but it's a pretty laid back place. It's chill. You can ask any question. We've got a lot of knowledgeable people in here. We got professional distillers, you know, that help out. You know, Clint's been at it for 40 plus years. I've been at it for 40 plus years. You know, Scott's got a lot of years under his belt. So three of us combined is over a century of experience. So if we can't answer it, we'll find an answer for you and a right answer. We won't just bullshit you like what you get in a lot of other places. Yeah, that's definitely a good trade. Yeah, or window liquors. Yeah, there you go. That's booty besties. That did look like that's what it said, didn't I? I could have sworn that's what it said when I first saw it. Oh no. All right. After you get your still tomorrow, what kind of steel did you get, Mike? I'll hang out. I'll hang here late and answer questions, brother. Let me scroll down to where you are though. After I get my still tomorrow, I need to do 3 runs around of water and the water with the one with old beer. Yeah, you could use old beer, but after you use old beer, then you have to clean out the hops. So I don't know. I don't think I'd do the old beer one. Hop oils, or you might have to clean that out. The wine would be fine. The old beer, I might be a little. I don't know. Hops. I've heard a lot of people having issues with hops. I've never distilled anything with hops in it. I've never distilled beer, but I've heard that hop oils can kind of coat the inside of your metal. Maybe copper, probably worse than stainless, but the wine for sure. And I'm sure it'll be okay. It might not taste good, but is this a stainless steel or a copper steel? Oh, I thought CO2 lasers won't work on metal. I don't know that much. Well, you know, if you do an eBay store, you just put all your shit on there and advertise it in different Facebook groups and different, you know, media, you know, X and everywhere else, and just sneak in a little ad on a post, you know, here and there, and kind of steer people to your eBay store, you know, and it doesn't cost anything. Yeah, it's hard to pack up, go from one to the next, especially with all that glass and having all the different things, you know, um, yeah, it's the Moonshine Militia. So just, I can give you a link, brother. Just 1 second. Here we go. you can follow this link right here, Mike, and it'll take you to the Moonshine Militia page. And but while we've got you, you're my captive audience right now. So the apartment steel. Now, is this the air steel or just the small? Oh, you're talking about, oh, Philbillies. What in the hell? If I could just type for the shit. Let me see which one you're talking about. The electric apartment steel, keg steel. Yeah, I'm thinking the same thing, Clint. I wouldn't put hop oil in my steel. It's a nightmare. So it is okay, cool. Yeah. I would say just run the wine through it. I'd say, just the wine through it, and then follow up the wine with, run them just boiling water. And when you do this, you don't want to, with your wine, you can run the condenser so you can condense that out. But with your water, just let it steam. Take it outside or put it, in a garage or anywhere. Or you can just vent it out the window if you want to. But a lot of steam builds up in the house. You don't want a lot of moisture in your house unless you need to add moisture in your house, in which case, damn good way to do it. But yeah, just crank that bad boy up and run your wine through there. Offend me for what, brother? I didn't say anything. Got me scrolling back now, Matt. What'd you say? That's sharp. Brother, I don't know. I think a lot of people might confuse regular street games with MCs without realizing they will definitely take a look at your ass. Oh, yeah, absolutely. No, you're not at all, brother. Not at all. No, when I went up to Ohio, it was for Philbilly Shindig, and I really wasn't taking it up there to show anybody other than Philbilly and a few of my friends up there, Sandman, everybody else, and so I was just showing all my friends up there, and this bar that we're having it at just happened to be a hangout for Mountain and so they came by and cruised by, and they kind of take care of things around there, make sure things are on the up and up. And they came by and visited with us, talked to us. They all cool as fuck. I mean, I used to hang out with a lot of MCs growing up. I did a lot of partying with them growing up. I understand how they work. Yeah, we just sat and chat, had a good time, and they was checking everything out. And I thought, well, this is the perfect time to ask, And Tom, was going to talk to somebody too, and I figured it's as good a time as any to ask. And they kind of looked at it, and he's an enforcer, so he's third man down, sergeant at arms. So he looked at it, and he's like, he was cool as fuck. They were all chill as fuck, cool dudes. And he's like, I don't see the MC. I don't see the 1% diamond or triangle or diamond patch on there. I don't see any locational things. So, it is a 3-piece. One of the other dudes like, well, it is a 3-piece. He's like, yeah, but I just, for us, we wouldn't have a problem with it. But, other people might, other people might see that, on a vest and, want to be a dick about it, which, some people may not like it in their area, and some might, and it's, if somebody sees you wearing it and they're like, hey, take that shit off, I suggest you take the shit off. Don't be a dick. Don't say fuck you, make me, unless you want to throw down, just that's cool, man. I wasn't trying to cause any waves or issues. We're not an MC, we're militia. We got a lot of MC members, we're chill, we make moonshine, brother, we're brothers in arms, So I mean, shit hits the fan, we're going to be elbow to elbow taking care of business. You know, who'll be doing it? You know, it'd be militia and a lot of these gangs and motorcycle clubs and everybody. You know, I hate using that word gang because that's like NS13. That ain't an MC. You know, that's a gang. But groups, I should say, yeah, motorcycle groups. Yeah, I don't like the word gang because when I hear gang, I think of MC13 and groups like that, not necessarily MCs. So I don't like the gang word. But we'll all be together. So I think it just, you know, how you deal with it when somebody asks you, you know, what the hell's that, or wants to know more about us. You know, tell them, you know, we're just a bunch of moonshiners. You know, we militia. You know, we're pro Second Amendment. You know, we're patriots. You know, and got a lot of MC members. You know, and then after you say that, and they see you cool, not some dickhead, I'm sure that they just like the outlaws up there. Well, that's cool as fuck. Yeah, they're cool. Yeah, take a few drinks with us. You know, we're brothers. Exactly. I've had a lot of that. I've had, actually, most of the people that are interested in it are in MCs. Everybody that has expressed an interest are either in MCs or have been. And they realize what it is, and it's beautiful, man. It's awesome. Exactly. It's a militia, and we got lots of MC members in our militia. You know, we are a militia. We're not a motorcycle club. I know a lot of us do. Hell yeah, Colton. Somebody. I definitely need to have a drink after the week I've had already. Had a lot of drama earlier this week. I can't stand it. But yeah, I was thinking, you know, if you want to, I guess if you wanted to put a 3% patch on there too, that'd be cool. Isn't that what the militia does? I don't know. That might offend some 1%ers, but I think the 3% is what they call the militia. Well, I'm sorry your week's been as bad as mine, man. I've had some bullshit drama to deal with early, and I hate dealing with that kind of shit. But when people are saying stuff, you know, about your name and stuff, and I have to defend myself. I try to be cool to everybody and try not to make waves, and people just, I don't know, take things the wrong way, I guess. Yeah, you know, man, growing up, I did a lot of drinking, lots and lots of heavy drinking, and I said lots of shit that I regret. I said lots of stupid shit that I shouldn't have said. I'm not going to hold anybody to any different standard that does the same. We all do it. You know, the person I had this, you know, drama with did the same things. You know, got drunk, said some stupid shit. I'm not judging them on that. You know, don't judge him at all on it. You know, he had reasons for saying what he said, and you know, somebody said shit about his kid, and I'm 100%. You know, hell yeah. So I don't know. It just shit gets out of hand sometimes. Okay, but you know, I don't want to make any enemies. I don't want any ill will. You know, I try to be laid back and cool. But you know, not everybody's going to let that happen. Some people just. Yep. Yeah, I mean, you know, there's lots of patches, you know, on um, Amazon, and you know, I may just buy a bunch of patches and just different patches. I saw a lot of cool middle finger patches that look back great on the back, lots of different, little saying patches about Second Amendments and lots of things like that, it doesn't have to have a 3-piece on your vest. I'm just going to sell vests for people to put stickers and patches on, but I'm not going to sell the patch set and the vest to the same person. I can't do that because that would be, no, I'm not going to try to get around that way. If somebody's going to put that patch on a vest, then they're just going to have to buy the patch kit and put it on the vest themselves. And, that's what they want to do. That's their prerogative. They do so knowing, the risk involved. And if somebody says something, just be cool. You say, okay, no problem, bro. There's no won't cause any issues. We're brothers, we're a moonshine militia. We make moonshine. We're a militia, and we got a lot of MC members, so we respect that. And if you don't want us wearing it in your turf, we'll gladly take it off. All right, let me get back to my. All right, Mike. Are people not worried about getting the ATF called to house after distilling? In Florida, it's against the law. Is it just like growing weed where I just keep my mouth shut? Yeah, Mike, it is. And, it's a lot of like weed in more ways than one. Here's the parallels, and they're very, very similar parallels. Growing weed federally is illegal. It doesn't matter, possession of weed federally is illegal. Selling weed federally is illegal. Even though you can drive to Ohio, walk into a 7-Eleven, well, I'm not sure 7-Eleven have it, but a store, and you can buy vapes, you can buy flour, you can buy any marijuana you want, walk out the door and go to certain areas and smoke it. Nobody gives a shit. Still illegal federally, but I don't see ATF standing outside waiting for somebody to walk out with a vape pen, So I'd say if you just don't advertise it, don't talk about it much, don't, post it on every social media come and going publicly. Your private groups are a little safer, but still, I would say most private groups have been infiltrated by somebody in an alphabet agency. They want to watch us. They're watching us right now, and I don't care. I'm trying to make it a safe, enjoyable hobby. I'm not here promoting people selling or doing large scale unless they want to do it legal. But we want people to be safe and happy. So there are states where it is legal to distill your own alcohol. Missouri, Alaska, West Virginia, name a few. There's others. Don't listen to anybody online that says this state is, this state isn't. Go to an attorney or go to your states.gov website and look up their revised statutes. It's called revised statutes, and that is the law of the states. I know that's what they're called here in Kentucky and in Missouri, but other places they may call it a little bit different. But here in Kentucky, they're called revised statutes. And you can do a Google search, yeah, on like Missouri revised statutes on distilling, and then you'll find different code subsections, chapter, or whatever, and find the information on what you have to do in Missouri to be legal. I can give you a little heads up. I did research on it. You have to be 21 or older, and you can do 100 gallons per year. Now, I don't know how they can judge how many gallons you're doing a year, so I would assume that means you have to have 100 gallons or less if they come visit you. You don't want to have more than 100 gallons. You can't sell it. You can't take it out of the house. There is a special circumstance where you can get a permit for like a wedding or a family reunion or something like that. But it requires a special permit that you have to go apply and pay for a fee. If you want to take some out, and I'd say you'd have to name how much, what, and all this, that, and the other. Um, but if you have two people living in the same household that is over 21, they can also have 100 gallons for them. But that's the maximum. So if you had four people over 21, you can't do 400 gallons. 200 gallons if you have two people in the house that are over 21 and are able to do it. You know, some people may be under court order. You can't drink or you can't do this because of so many or probationary reasons or whatever. I don't know. Don't want to get involved. But for those places, it's perfectly legal to buy your little apartment still and run it. Come on here and ask your questions and do it. You can post pictures. You can show everything you want. And probably chances are the feds have a lot more to worry about these days than that. Now, on the other hand, you've got certain states like, I think it's South Carolina, that have something called ALE, Alcohol Law Enforcement. These are law enforcement, have nothing to do. They sit around all day waiting on an alcohol laws to enforce. They work with the legal distilleries there. They, go around and do some checks to make sure everything's done on the up and up, paperwork and up, and all that. And so they deal with that, and they're bored. They really are bored. So a lot of times they'll get on TikTok, they'll get on Facebook, they'll get on YouTube, and they'll search and they'll try to find somebody in their state that's doing it, and they may try to gather evidence and make a case of it. We've had 5 different people in that state that gotten busted in the last year and a half. So, in certain states, you're going to definitely want to be a little more tight-lipped than others. But as long as you're not doing it on a big scale, it's not going to be as big a deal. When you go to court and your judge sees that you got a little teeny apartment still or an air still, and you're only making little teeny amounts, and they're like, this dude's, did you catch him selling anything? No, he was just making it, So no tax laws were violated. And that's one of the biggies they get you on federally is tax evasion, because you're evading the tax on the alcohol. But I guess if you do it as a hobby, don't do it and sell. Now, you can sell wine and beer in most states. You can make and sell wine and beer. So, if you want to stick to that, you can and not have any worries. But I do tell everybody when you're making notes about brandy recipes, that's a wine recipe. It's not a brandy recipe. Don't use the word brandy. Don't use whiskey recipes. Call it beer recipe, because beer recipes, that's not evidence. Whiskey recipes, that's evidence. Brandy recipes, that's evidence. Wine recipes, that's not evidence because it's legal. Even that little bit of wording, can help you in court if it boils down to that. So, kind of just be smart about it. Share it with your closest friends, and don't tell a lot of people, especially people that don't, particularly like you. Yeah, I used to do it by wood. That's how we did it. Set that keg right on that fire, buddy. Yeah, I agree. And that's what and location, yeah, the location too can be a, you know, biggie for some that are turf oriented. Yeah, never sell. Don't, if you don't sell, chances are you're going to be fine. And don't tell a lot of people, maybe your closest buddies, but just don't talk about it a lot. Just make it your little hobby. You can share wine and beer with them, and sure, you've got tight knit friends. You can do it, show them your hobby, get them involved in your hobby. I don't think it's going to be a long way out to where people are going to start pushing for legalization of being able to do it, just like marijuana. A lot more and more states are going to start adding it because really, people say it's about safety. That's bullshit. Alcohol tax was the very first tax that Americans had. It was the first tax that we ever had put on us. And we just became a new country. In Washington, he was a distiller. So there might have been a little corruption involved there to cut back on some of these other distillers. But yeah, he had to pay the tax and everybody else, and then there was the Whiskey Rebellion and all that. And didn't last very long. But that was the first tax. So it's about the Benjamins. It's not about safety and everything like they try to profess. And nowadays they're starting to realize that, maybe just taxing the commercial side and letting people do their own recreational, at home and limit it, put limits on it. You can't have, if we catch you with more than 50 gallons in your possession at any given time or 100 gallons, in a barrel or in your possession, then you're going to pay a big hefty fine and you're going to pay a commercial tax on it because you're going to be considered commercial over that, that amount. But every state has different laws on alcohol. It's going to be really tough to try to get a unified law across the board because of that. And, as a result, yeah, some states you can, and others, in some states you can't even own a still. I mean, there's lots of things you can do with a still. You distill water. You can make, tinctures. You can make essential oils. There's lots of shit that, yeah, Missouri's awesome. And West Virginia and a few other states that are trying to preserve people's rights. Right, and there's some states that allow you to do what's a gasoline or a fuel permit. A lot of people do the fuel permit thing, and they just keep it in barrels and call it fuel. When they want to go get a drink, they go out to their barrel and get them a damn drink. But I don't know if there might be rules there that that would require them to denature it, right? Yeah, as long as it's between 65 and 75, that's the optimal temperature for your coolant. So you might, if it's not, you can get like a big cooler or a tote or a kiddie pool, and you don't need anything huge, but there's quite a bit of water used in the process, so you'll be recirculating a lot and needing to keep a lot cool. Little baby pools are fine, and just freeze you gallon jugs of water, and try to keep that kiddie pool at a 70 to 75, 60, 75 degrees, that range, and you should be fine. The world doesn't end if it gets above or below that. It will have slight impact on your distillate, but really that's the only temperature I pay attention to in my whole run. That's the only temperature that I really monitor, is my condensing temperature. Right, and I'm not sure in Texas if they ever set an amount. I know basically Texas, the thing in Texas was a lot like some recent gun laws. And if y'all keep up with gun laws, Texas had a law that they were going through their state that says if you live in Texas and you want to buy a silencer or suppressor, I call it suppressor, silencer is kind of a Hollywood name, a suppressor for your arm, and it's made in Texas, then by God, you should be able to do that because there's no interstate trade or anything going on. Therefore, the government, federal government, should have no say in it, right? And if they can eliminate it from being an NFA item, which it should not be, you know, a suppressor is not a gun. So they really shouldn't have any enforcement on that whatsoever. It should be like a magazine. You know, a magazine's not a gun, you know. Gun requires it, so that might be the stipulation with mags, the way they regulate it. But anyway, so there was a few gun organizations that helped pay for the attorneys to get this passed through Texas. And as a result, only people that are in those clubs or associations that pay their dues are covered. Now, you may be able to argue that all the way up to the Supreme Court that you shouldn't be able to buy yourself into an association that would put you in a position to where a law wouldn't apply to others or apply to you that would apply to others, right? So I don't think that there should be any exclusionary ability about joining an association and that having an impact on a law. So I'm not a lawyer. I've got a whole family full of them. I could probably ask them and they'll tell me to shut up and read it and Google it or something like that. But you know, it's a big iffy, and it's supposedly, you know, the Home Distillers Association, I think, is the one that actually helped foot a lot of that bill. So right now, maybe people that are members of the Home Distiller Association, I think that's it. Don't quote me on it. Might Google it and find out, but I'm pretty sure that's what it was. But they would be covered under this law until the Supreme Court rules on it, you know, the Supreme Court, you know. But yeah, I think it should be part of our life, liberty, and our pursuit of happiness, and to have that hobby, as long as we're doing it safe. Now I can see maybe them requiring a permit or education, or, you know, you have to, you know, in some states where you used to have to get a concealed carry permit, you had to take a class. So, you know, if you want to do a home distilling thing, you might have to come see old Santa and take a class. And I'd love that. I can charge fees. You know, that'd be wonderful. So maybe we work on that. Damn, I like the sound of that, man. Hell yeah, I can do concealed carry class, teach how to shoot and shine, and hell, that'd be awesome. But yeah, just find you a big reservoir, like Clint's saying. I don't know, 150 degrees. That's pretty damn warm. But and you can keep it cool. I know probably groundwater there's at probably 80 plus. Yeah. But I think they found that the optimal, if you can get it between 60 and 75, I think that's the most optimal. I think higher, certain oils don't get somewhat saponified, or there's something about the oils and how the oils deal with the heat. And if it's too cold, they begin to saponify and coagulate, and it causes your distillate to get cloudier quicker and the oils to fall out of solution quicker. And hotter, I think it just makes the liquor a little bit hotter, but there are some other things that created some issues when you get to real high temperatures. But optimal is 60 to 75. That doesn't mean 50's horrible or 90's horrible. It just means that if you want to be optimal, this is the range. And it's functional. Yeah, all the way up to a pretty high temp. As long as it's cooler than the vapor going through, it's going to help condense it. But I would say it also has to do with the efficiency and type of your condenser. A Liebig will probably maybe require a little bit cooler temp than maybe a shotgun, which may require a little cooler temp than, say, a big worm. You know, the larger and more efficient your worm or your condenser, I'm sorry, I would say that it would probably be, 60 to 65 would be fine. But I know, like in those little Vever 3 pots, it's going to be almost impossible to keep the liquid in that little ass condenser at 60 to 75. I know damn good well you have to keep putting little ice. What I do, I get my little, I don't have one here. I get like little water bottles and I just freeze them and set them right down in the middle of that little, thing. That would work fine for those, but it's best to upgrade those because those are extremely inefficient and they're not going to be very productive for you. They're better if you definitely, do that. So anyway, we're very late tonight. We're at 11:30. Usually we go to 8 to 10 or 8 to 11. Hell, we burned the midnight oil tonight. But thanks for jumping on here, Mike. Yeah, jump in, Moonshine Militia, ask your questions. Uh, thanks for patronizing our buddy Phil Billy. He makes all this possible for us. He's my sponsor, so we try to send him any business we can. Um, I'm sure he's probably got the amylase we were talking about earlier too. So if you need anything, he's got your needs, especially if you got Vever type steels. They do all kinds of work on Vevers. I talked to Ian. They're going to try to get the little plastic gaskets. Now, not the big rim gaskets. Those are real hard to find. They're trying to. I'm trying. I may have to learn how to speak Chinese in order to get this damn thing. But they're going to start carrying the little plastic kits that break very easily, and they're going to start maybe carrying some that'll be a little bit better for you, maybe some silicone gaskets that won't snap and break on you every time you use them. So they're going to carry those and sell little packs of them for next to nothing. They ship cheap and put a baggie full of them in the mail pretty cheaply. So they're going to start carrying those for the Vevers too. But they do all kinds of things. They got columns for your Vevers. They got horse heads if you want to put them on your Vevers, or keg steels. They can do a lot of custom work. Pretty good guys, great guys. Me and Ian both, Phil Bill and Ian both, great people. If you haven't met them, y'all need to. Awesome people, down to earth, good people. All right, y'all. Well, I would say I'll see you this weekend, but I won't. I'll go share some shine with my old buddies and do the football thing and talk about that Hall of Fame issue. But yeah, I was the only one that made the Hall of Fame that didn't get a big time scholarship to go play football somewhere. Everybody else did. I guess I was pretty wild though, and I'm sure my coach probably said, "You don't want him. He's crazy. He smokes. He drinks. He's a swarper." I was a swarper. He hated me, but he didn't have a choice to play me, and all the other coaches are the ones that pretty much voted me in all conferences on him. That says a lot. But it's great for y'all being here, and especially you new guys. Definitely join the militia and DIY shining stuff and ask you questions. We'll get you taken care of. Have a great week and a great weekend. Hopefully Friday we'll have a shit show. I won't be on it either because we're going Friday to this thing. So I'll be gone all weekend. But everybody have a good one and shine on, and we'll see you next Wednesday. Peace out, brothers. Later.